Chapter 2776. This was because the Golden Yuan King was too calm in this situation. It was as if the one who was about to be killed wasn't him. Could this be one of his doppelgangers? Night Sorrow observed with his sea serpent's eye and realized that the Golden Yuan King had merged with his doppelganger. This made him even more confused. Anyone who was severely injured would use their best skills. However, the Golden Yuan King seemed to be on the verge of death. The Dragon Sparrow King was getting more and more excited. He used all sorts of techniques to attack the Golden Yuan King. He shouted, "Do you admit defeat? If you continue to resist, you will lose your life." Do you think a mere sparrow like you can make this king admit defeat? What a joke. The Golden Yuan King's aura was weak, but he did not lower his head in front of the Dragon Sparrow King. If you don't surrender, then you can die. The Dragon Sparrow King's eyes were bloodshot. Seeing that the Golden Yuan King was in such a state, he attacked again. The Golden Yuan King didn't come here to die. What's the problem? As the Dragon Sparrow King attacked, Night Sorrow, who had activated his sea serpent's eye, began to think of all sorts of possibilities. Boom. Just as Night Sorrow was thinking, the Dragon Sparrow King's attack landed on the Golden Yuan King's body. After being struck, the Golden Yuan King's aura began to drop rapidly. Not long after, he lost all signs of life. Dead. The Golden Yuan King was killed by me so easily? I thought that he still had some tricks up his sleeve. The Dragon Sparrow King was stunned when he realized that the Golden Yuan King had lost all signs of life. He seemed to be tough, but he never thought that he could kill the Golden Yuan King. Seeing the Golden Yuan King's corpse falling from the sky, the Dragon Sparrow King had the same doubts as Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow asked, "You said that the Golden Yuan King had obtained the ancestral phoenix blood essence, right?" "Yes. That's why he's stronger than us," the Dragon Sparrow King explained. "Then I understand." Night Sorrow nodded and said, "He will definitely be reborn. And after that he will be even stronger." He thought of Jingyun's rebirth and knew that it was a phoenix bloodline ability. Right. How could I have forgotten about that? When Dragon Sparrow King heard Yishang's words, he was so frightened that his expression changed drastically. He had not been polite at all just now. Just as the two of them were talking, the lifeless corpse of the Golden Yuan King suddenly burst into flames. Seeing the Golden Yuan King's body burning, the Dragon Sparrow King's face was as white as paper. "It's over. We were right. Should we stop him from resurrecting himself? Of course we can't stop it. If the Golden Yuan King were to die completely, then the Golden Yuan King would definitely die. If the Golden Yuan King that would Yuan King. Yishang said to Dragon Sparrow King. Then he said telepathically, "Actually, it seemed like I attacked with all my might, but I still had a backup plan. But after his rebirth, his strength will definitely increase by a lot. Luo King's Kings. There is nothing we can do about it. Even if he becomes stronger, we can't stop him." Yishang said as he took out some materials and started to set up a new spirit array within the array formation. He was setting up the star shift formation that he learned from the heaven and earth formation. It wasn't like the heaven and earth great formations, which needed a lot of materials to activate. Soon Night Sorrow finished setting it up. At the same time, the burning body of the Golden Yuan King disappeared in the fire. After the body was gone, the sound of a phoenix resonated in the sky. The Dragon Sparrow King heard the sound of the phoenix and he wanted to kneel down. He said in a shaking voice, "The phoenix? It seems he has become a phoenix." "It seems so." "Well, it is expected." Yishang recalled Jingyun's change and felt that the Golden Yuan King's change was understandable. "Ahahaha. This king needs to thank you." After the rebirth, the Golden Yuan King laughed and said, "I am not the Golden Yuan King anymore. I am the Golden Phoenix King." "Congratulations." Night Sorrow was in the sky. He congratulated the Golden Phoenix King and said, "Let's continue the bet." "Aha. This king has improved so much. He is almost as powerful as the Divine King. Do you still want to fight me?" Hearing Yishang's words, the Golden Yuan King, who had evolved into a true phoenix, laughed madly again. The aura on his body was indeed very strong, much stronger than the Fire Phoenix King. Yishang looked at him and said, "I think that the two of us have a chance of defeating you. Take this then." In the sky, the Golden Phoenix King sensed her phoenix body and then turned into a human shape. He punched at Night Sorrow and the Dragon Sparrow King. It was exactly the same as when he first showed up. This time, Night Sorrow and the Dragon Sparrow King tried their best to fight back, but they were still blown away. Among them, the Dragon Sparrow King was almost killed by this attack. After he got up, he sighed and said, The Golden Phoenix King is not something we can defeat. There's nothing that can't be resisted. Yi Shang, on the other hand, was extremely calm. He activated the two formations and shot the 5 elements arrow at the Golden Phoenix King again. This move doesn't pose much of a threat to me anymore. The Golden Phoenix King disdainfully looked at the 5 elements arrow. Dominator's weapon is useless in your hands. Accept your failure. Let it be this king's. Then, it spat out a gust of white flames, intending to incinerate the 5 heaven cloud arrows. You're oversimplifying things. Night Sorrow saw the Golden Phoenix King's reaction and smiled. He used the star-shifting formation to hide the 5 arrows in the void. He avoided the Golden Phoenix King's flame. He showed up behind the Golden Phoenix King. The Golden Phoenix King didn't expect Night Sorrow to do such a thing. The 5 elements arrow hit the Golden Phoenix King's back. What the hell is this? The Golden Phoenix King was hit by the 5 elements arrow again. His face turned dark. He discovered that even if his bloodline had evolved, he would still be severely injured by the 5 elemental arrows shot out by the sovereign artifact. You don't need to know what this is. There are other things waiting for you. As Yi Shang spoke, he recalled the 5 heavenly cloud arrows and shot out the 5 element arrows again. This time, the Golden Phoenix King didn't spit out fire. He dodged the arrows. At the same time, he took out a feather from his body and slashed at Night Sorrow like a sword. You dodge or not, the result is the same. When the Golden Phoenix King's sword attack hit him, Yi Shang used the Big Dipper teleportation to move himself to the void. Chapter 2777. What the hell is this? The sky cloud arrow disappeared in the sky again. The Golden Phoenix King had become the Golden Phoenix King, but she couldn't do anything about it. She felt so upset. That is the power of the formation. It is called the star-shifting formation. Yi Shang saw the sky cloud arrow hit the Golden Phoenix King again, so he said something to Yi Shang. He didn't hide the star-shifting formation. Star-shifting formation? Let's see how this king breaks it. The Golden Phoenix King was hit by the 5 elements arrow again. He was severely injured, but the Golden Phoenix King had a strong recovery ability. After a while he was fully recovered. Since he couldn't hit Night Sorrow, he started to attack the barrier of the formation. You are thinking too much. You can't do anything in the formation. Night Sorrow smiled. He started to control the Golden Phoenix King's attack with the power of the formation. The Golden Phoenix King kept attacking him. After a while, the Golden Phoenix King, who couldn't hit Night Sorrow or the barrier of the formation, started to attack him. He had never felt so humiliated before. The Golden Phoenix King had become a Golden Phoenix King, so he was in high spirits. However, he was in such a miserable state. This king. How could he? The Golden Phoenix King was annoyed. He didn't care about the formation at all. He thought he could defeat Night Sorrow with his own power. However, he ended up in such a miserable state. The Golden Phoenix King was so upset. Night Sorrow stopped attacking and said, "Just give up. Inside the formation you are suppressed. You can't do anything to me. If we leave the formation, we won't be able to defeat you. But here you can't. You won't win a fair fight. I won't give up even if I have to die." The Golden Phoenix King gritted his teeth. He didn't want to give up. You are useless to me. You don't want to give up. Since you don't want to admit defeat, then die. When Night Sorrow spoke up to this point, his tone changed from calm to cold with endless killing intent. Kill this king? If you kill this king, can you defeat the Fire Phoenix King and the others? The Golden Phoenix King sounded confident. He felt that his existence was very important, and Night Sorrow would not kill him. You're too naive. If I can suppress you like this, I can also suppress them. Night Sorrow swallowed a few pills to recover his divine essence energy. He shot out the 5 element arrows again and used the Azure Rock soul-rending roar. This king. The 5 elements arrow shot out again and the Golden Phoenix King was upset. Furthermore, the Azure Rock soul-splitting roar directly threatened his soul. Within the stellar transposition array, there was no way he could dodge such an attack. What is this king? Why don't you admit defeat? Do you want to die? The Dragon Sparrow King didn't speak for a long time. After Night Sorrow suppressed the Golden Phoenix King, he sneered. He didn't like the Golden Phoenix King at all. Go away. You ant. You don't have the qualifications to lead the team. This king will point and criticize you. The Golden Phoenix King scolded the Dragon Sparrow King. He despised the Dragon Sparrow King. He didn't like the Dragon Sparrow King at all. The Dragon Sparrow King sneered and said, "This king is this king. who is not a king. It's just that I know better than you. Do you think you can compare to him? Why are you struggling? It is none of your business whether I struggle or not. The Golden Phoenix King couldn't stop talking. Soon he couldn't even talk anymore. Because of Night Sorrow's attacks, he became more and more agitated. The Dragon Sparrow King asked the Golden Phoenix King, but the Golden Phoenix King was too arrogant to admit defeat. The Dragon Sparrow King didn't think it was necessary to show mercy to the Golden Phoenix King. Haha. This king is telling you something. There is only a winner who lives. There is no king who dies. Go to hell. The Dragon Sparrow King sneered and stopped trying to persuade the Golden Phoenix King. Just like Night Sorrow, he kept attacking the Golden Phoenix King. The Golden Phoenix King was injured by the Sky Cloud arrow. After being attacked by the two of them, he couldn't hold on any longer. At this moment, the Golden Phoenix King finally felt scared. He realized that neither Night Sorrow nor the Dragon Sparrow King took him seriously. They didn't want to show mercy to him at all. What should I do? Is this king going to be my servant? No way. The Golden Phoenix King knew he was going to die, but he didn't want to give in. Your story ends here. When the Golden Phoenix King couldn't fight back anymore, Night Sorrow took out 5 more arrows and prepared to kill him. Don't do it. This king can swear that I will serve you in this small world. I will protect you. The Golden Phoenix King realized that if Night Sorrow made a move, he would be killed. At the last moment he started to beg for mercy. If you knew this would happen, why did you do it in the first place? The Dragon Sparrow King disdainfully scolded the Golden Phoenix King. Yishang didn't care about the Golden Phoenix King's begging. When he shot out the Sky Cloud 5 Elements arrow, he said, "That's not what we agreed on. You have no right to bargain with me. I give up. I give up. I will serve you from now on. If I break my promise, I will die." After Night Sorrow shot out the Sky Cloud 5 Elements arrow, the Golden Phoenix King couldn't hold it anymore. He kneeled in the sky and begged for mercy. He had just obtained the Golden Phoenix bloodline. Before he could use it, he was going to be killed. That was a different feeling. That was hopeless. The Golden Phoenix King chose to surrender. Can you use the formation to divert the attack? The Dragon Sparrow King looked at Night Sorrow and talked to him through mind connection. You don't have that many chances. Night Sorrow didn't want to hold back at all. He controlled the Sky Cloud 5 Elements arrow to kill the Golden Phoenix King. Night Sorrow didn't think it was necessary to keep the Golden Phoenix King alive. The Golden Phoenix King might betray him at any time. Even though the Golden Phoenix King was bound by the oath, it was meaningless to keep such a man around. How can we defeat the Fire Phoenix King if we kill him? The Dragon Sparrow King was confused when he saw Night Sorrow kill the Golden Phoenix King. If the Fire Phoenix King tries to kill us, he will rush into the formation. We will deal with the Fire Phoenix King the same way we dealt with the Golden Phoenix King. Yishang said. After he killed the Golden Phoenix King, he used the illusion array to show the battle between him, the Dragon Sparrow King, and the Golden Phoenix King. The Dragon Sparrow King and the Dragon Sparrow King barely won the battle. Seeing such a scene, if the Fire Phoenix King and her subordinates entered the spirit design, it proved that they were interested in the Heaven Cloud Bow. Chapter 2778. If they enter the formation, they won't be able to defeat us. The Dragon Bird King calmed down a bit after hearing Night Sorrow's words. The Golden Phoenix King was so powerful, yet she couldn't fight back in the formation. The Fire Phoenix King and the others shouldn't be able to either. The Dragon Bird King thought for a while and asked, "What if they don't enter the formation? What should we do?" If they want the Dominator's divine weapon, they will definitely enter the formation. Night Sorrow said. The formation showed the Fire Phoenix King and the others the best way to get the Dominator's divine weapon. As long as they wanted the Dominator's divine weapon, they would do it. Good. Let's wait then. The Dragon Bird King calmed down after hearing Night Sorrow's words. He realized that he had made the right choice by standing on Night Sorrow's side. Here they come. The Dragon Bird King had just said something, and Night Sorrow sensed that some people had entered the formation. 3 of them, the Fire Phoenix King, the Fire Bat King, and the Fire Serpent King. As expected. Everybody is greedy. The Dragon Bird King stood in the sky and looked at where Night Sorrow pointed. He released his spiritual soul power and sensed the Fire Phoenix King and the others as well. Ahaha. Dragon Bird King, it seems you are not seriously injured. The Fire Bat King sensed the Dragon Bird King's chi, so he disdainfully shouted. It caused a huge tremor in the formation. Some of the mountain rocks were shattered by the roar. Fire Bat King, what are you doing? Night Sorrow didn't say anything, but he looked at the Dragon Bird King. The Dragon Bird King knew what he meant, so he scolded the Fire Bat King. "Ahaha! We are here to get the Dominator's divine weapon." The Fire Bat King laughed. "Get the Dominator's divine weapon? You are shameless." The Dragon Bird King heard the Fire Bat King and mocked him. Hearing Dragon Sparrow King's ridicule, Fire Bat King laughed and said, "Don't talk nonsense with me. You two just give us the Dominator's divine weapon. We know you are already at the end of your rope. You don't have the power to fight back." After the Fire Bat King spoke, the Fire Dragon King and Fire Phoenix King didn't say anything, but they had already used their actions to prove their stance. The Fire WRM King had already chased after the Dragon Sparrow King. The Fire Phoenix King, on the other hand, had locked onto Night Sorrow. Clearly she wanted to take Tianyun Bao for herself. "I remember you said that you would give me a year's time. Can't wait any longer?" Night Sorrow, who was standing quietly in the air, said when he saw the Fire Phoenix Empire flying towards him. His voice wasn't loud, but everyone in the formation could hear him clearly. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Fire Phoenix King's face revealed a trace of a smile. There is a saying that all is fair in war. The sovereign artifact is the key to this king's ability to leave this small world and obtain the ancestral phoenix's fortune. How could he give it up so easily? "Aren't you curious why I'm not injured at all?" Yishang asked with a calm expression. He was calm. The Fire Phoenix King, who was as confident as the Golden Phoenix King, was a bit surprised. She didn't think that Night Sorrow could turn the situation around. She thought for a while and coldly said, "It doesn't matter whether you are injured or not. The Golden Phoenix King is dead. In this small world nobody can stop this king. If the invincible Golden Phoenix King died, why do you think you are invincible?" Night Sorrow thought that the Fire Phoenix King and the Golden Phoenix King were the same kind of people. They were proud from the bottom of their hearts. They didn't care about him at all. He had the sovereign artifact, but he was ignored. "The Golden Wand King is alone, but I have 3 deity kings. How are you and the Dragon Sparrow King going to stop them?" After saying that, the Fire Phoenix King turned into a phoenix from her human form. He spat out a mouthful of extremely hot flames at Yishan. When the Fire Phoenix King attacked, the Fire Flood Dragon King attacked the Dragon Sparrow King too. The Fire Bat King was a free man. He was going to help whoever was in a passive position. From their point of view, the 3 of them would be able to crush Night Sorrow and Dragon Sparrow King completely with their lineup. There was no doubt that they would win. They didn't think about why the Golden Phoenix King was killed. Besides, Night Sorrow and the Dragon Sparrow King weren't injured at all. They were arrogant. "We don't need to defend against your attacks. You are the ones who need to defend yourselves." Facing the Fire Phoenix King's attack, Night Sorrow didn't move at all. He directly used the Star Transposition Array and used the flames spat out by the Fire Phoenix King to attack the Fire WRM King. The Fire Flood Dragon King was attacking the Dragon Sparrow King, but he was stunned by the fire that came out of nowhere. He looked at the Fire Phoenix King with confusion. "Fire Phoenix King, what is going on? Why are you attacking me?" "This king didn't attack you. There is a formation here. He can use the formation to divert this king's attacks." The Fire Phoenix King replied to the Fire Flood Dragon King. She already knew how Night Sorrow killed the Golden Phoenix King. If he could divert her attacks without limit, this battle would be really troublesome. "I see. What should we do?" The Fire Flood Dragon King asked in a panic when he heard that Night Sorrow had such an ability. He had never heard of such an ability before. He didn't know how to deal with it. "I think we can try to use a Divine Soul attack," the Fire Phoenix King said. She didn't hesitate and immediately used a Divine Soul attack on Night Sorrow. She said to the Fire Bat King, "Find a way to break the formation. If this goes on, we might follow in the Golden Phoenix King's footsteps." Only then did the Fire Phoenix King realize that things weren't that simple. Fire attacks don't work, but Divine Soul attacks work? In the face of the Fire Phoenix King's Divine Soul attack, Night Sorrow directly diverted it to the Fire Bat King, who was looking for a flaw in the formation. The Fire Bat King, who had been flying in the air, was hit hard by the Fire Phoenix King's soul attack and fell down. "Fire Phoenix King. We can't continue fighting like this. The challenger is an invincible existence in this formation." The Fire Bat King, whose divine soul was shaken, said to the Fire Phoenix King. There was no doubt that if they continued fighting like this, they would all be killed like the Golden Phoenix King. This king also didn't expect that he could set up such a formation that has never been heard of before. The Fire Phoenix King also felt a great deal of pressure. Although she was the strongest among them, what was the use? Night Sorrow didn't give her any room to play. At this moment, the Fire Flood Dragon King suddenly said to the Fire Phoenix King, "Let's attack together. Maybe he doesn't have the ability to control all of our attacks." "Yes, you're right." Chapter 2779. Looking at Night Sorrow and Dragon Sparrow King, Fire Phoenix King, who had been reminded by the Fire Drake King, transmitted her voice to the Fire Drake King and Fire Bat King. "I'll feign an attack later. Both of you attack at the same time and try to kill Dragon Sparrow King instantly." At this point, Fire Phoenix King paused for a moment and said, "When the two of you attack, pay attention to all your methods. Try to make him panic." "Okay. I'll use my divine weapons and talismans." Fire Bat King, who had received the message, replied and prepared to attack. Fire Drake King also transmitted his voice. "Don't worry." "Very good." Fire Phoenix King received the reply and immediately slashed at Night Sorrow with her Phoenix Feather Sword. She felt that Night Sorrow would not be able to move the sword away from her. At the same time, Fire Bat King and Fire Drake King attacked Dragon Sparrow King one after another. Not only did the two of them use their strongest divine weapons, but they also used their divine talismans. For a moment, the attacks in the formation were chaotic, making it difficult for people to look at them. "You guys are really simple-minded. If it was so easy to break, would it still be called a formation?" Seeing the three of them, Night Sorrow smiled and directly transferred himself and Dragon Sparrow King into the void. All three of their attacks missed. "You can do that?" Fire Drake King, who had suggested to Fire Phoenix King, was speechless after his attack missed. It seemed that Night Sorrow was a godlike existence in this formation. There was no way to defeat him. Fire Phoenix King and Fire Bat King were also speechless. The situation in front of them made them feel a little desperate. Aren't you guys very arrogant? Why are you like Golden Wand King, unable to resist at all?" Dragon Sparrow King, who had been transferred to the void by Night Sorrow, mocked Fire Phoenix King and the others. "Dragon Sparrow King, this is not your ability. What are you being arrogant for?" Fire Bat King retorted unhappily when he heard Dragon Sparrow King's mockery. He felt that Dragon Sparrow King was a villain who was intoxicated by success. Dragon Sparrow King smiled and said, "Isn't having good eyesight and making the right choice a kind of ability?" "Dragon Sparrow King, do you still have any divine talismans?" Meanwhile, Night Sorrow sent a voice transmission to the Dragon Sparrow King. "Divine talisman? What talisman?" Dragon Sparrow King asked doubtfully. At this moment he was completely convinced by Night Sorrow. Under such circumstances, he was completely unable to react to Yi Shang's question. "Speed increasing talisman." At the same time, Night Sorrow explained, "The surrounding heaven and earth Yuan Qi has been depleted. The star-shifting formation can no longer be used." What was going on? There are still 2 divine talismans left. Do we need to escape now? After receiving this news, the Dragon Sparrow King was immediately dumbfounded. He had just mocked the Phoenix King. If the Phoenix King took the initiative, he would die miserably. Originally, the surrounding Yuan Qi was very abundant, enough to support the revolving star passage formation for dozens of years. But just now, all the energy of heaven and earth in the vicinity disappeared. Night Sorrow explained. As for why this happened, he really couldn't figure it out. "Then do we need to escape?" Dragon Sparrow King was speechless. "What's there to do?" Immediately, we need to escape to the location of the challenge." Night Sorrow said and continued, "Give me all the speed-increasing talismans and enter my spatial artifact. Otherwise it won't be safe when we reach the challenge. After all, 2 people are not allowed to enter the challenge at the same time." "Alright. I'll give you the talisman." Dragon Sparrow King handed the talisman to Night Sorrow without hesitation. At the same time he entered the Haotian Pagoda in the void. After receiving the talisman, Night Sorrow looked at the Phoenix King and the others. After sizing them up, he said, "I'll give you all a chance. If you don't want to die here, then swear an oath to the heavens and follow me." This was the last attempt he was prepared to make. If the Phoenix King and the others were fooled and swore an oath to the heavens, then he wouldn't have to run at all. "You want me, the Phoenix King, to follow you, a divine lord?" Hearing Night Sorrow, the Phoenix King looked disdainful. "If I, the Phoenix King, am such a humble person, I wouldn't be here today. It seems you are just like the Golden Phoenix King, the Golden Phoenix King. You won't give up until you see the coffin." Night Sorrow coldly said and took out the Tianyun bow. He didn't hesitate to shoot out the 5 elements arrows. "No. He can divert our attacks. He must be able to do the same with the Dominator's divine weapon. Activate your strongest defense now." 5 sky cloud arrows were shot out. The Phoenix King immediately talked to the Fire Bat King and the Fire Serpent King, telling them to be prepared. They didn't want to be killed by the Dominator's divine weapon. I wonder who the Dominator's divine weapon is going to attack. When the sky cloud arrows were flying, the Fire Serpent King murmured. He was the weakest among the 3 kings. If Night Sorrow's 5 elements arrows hit him, he wouldn't be able to defend himself. The Fire Bat King was a bit nervous. He didn't want to be hit by the 5 elements arrows. The more you defend yourselves, the easier it will be for me to leave. Yi Shang held back his laughter when he saw their reactions. He immediately used the divine talisman and dragon roaming heaven steps to fly in the direction of the trial. At the same time, the 5 sky cloud arrows were called back. No, he is just pretending. He is running away. The formation should be useless now. The Phoenix King was the first to react. She immediately chased after Yi Shao. The Fire Bat King and the Fire Serpent King felt lucky, but they also chased after Yi Shao. Intruder. You can't escape. The Fire Phoenix King shouted coldly as she chased after Yi Shang. She felt like she was being toyed with by Yi Shang and she felt very depressed. You are the one who can't escape. I will leave this small world soon. After using the heavenly talisman made by the Dragon Sparrow King, Night Sorrow was extremely fast. When he used the dragon steps, the 3 kings couldn't even catch up with him. At this moment, the Phoenix King said, "We have to catch up to him. Otherwise we will lose the chance to leave this small world." She could tell that Night Sorrow had a high chance of passing the challenge because he had too many tricks up his sleeve. After shouting this, the Phoenix King ignited her bloodline and instantly increased her speed by more than 2 times. This time, the Phoenix King left the Fire Bat King and the Fire Serpent King far behind. She was getting closer and closer to Night Sorrow. This king said that you can't escape. Based on the distance between the 2 of them, it was certain that they would catch up to Yi Sorrow if they continued to move at their current speed. The Phoenix King's eyes were filled with viciousness. Yi, let's not talk about whether you can catch up to me. Even if you catch up alone, so what? Chapter 2780. According to Night Sorrow's judgment, the Fire Phoenix King should be much weaker than the Golden Luan King. Since the Golden Luan King, who had evolved into a Golden Phoenix, had been fatally injured by Tianyun Bao's attack, the Fire Phoenix King definitely wouldn't be able to withstand it. If he and the Dragon Sparrow King attacked together, the Fire Phoenix King might not be able to gain the upper hand. However, if they chose to attack now, they might not be able to take down the Fire Phoenix King in a short period of time. This way the Fire Bat King and the Fire WRM King would arrive. As Night Sorrow used the Dragon Roaming Sky Steps, he added some spatial attributes to increase his speed. Let's see how fast you can increase your speed. Seeing Night Sorrow increase his speed, the Fire Phoenix King, whose face had already turned sinister, increased the speed of her bloodline consumption. She wanted to increase her speed so that she could close the distance between her and Night Sorrow. I can increase my speed to a point where you won't be able to catch up. The Fire Phoenix King increased the speed at which her bloodline burned, closing the distance between the 2 of them. Night Sorrow, who had used his consciousness to scan the area, realized that if he didn't increase his speed, he would soon catch up. He also began to burn his own blood to increase his speed. This way the speed of the 2 of them had basically reached their limits. There was almost a millimeter difference between the 2 of them, forming a stalemate. As for the Fire Bat King and the Fire WRM King, the distance between them was already quite far. Are you alright? Can you hold on by burning your own blood like this? The Dragon Sparrow King asked worriedly when he saw that Night Sorrow was actually competing with the Fire Phoenix King's bloodline power and wasn't at a disadvantage in terms of speed. I'm fine. At this speed, how long will it take for us to reach the trial? Night Sorrow asked. After all, the Dragon Sparrow King had told him about the trial, so he could only make a rough estimate. When the Dragon Sparrow King heard this, he silently calculated and said, "If we maintain this speed, it will take another 2 hours. At this rate, I should be able to hold on until we reach the trial." Night Sorrow was well aware of his own foundation. After thinking for a moment, he continued to ask, "Can we enter the trial directly when we reach the trial?" "Yes. I've mentioned this before." The Dragon Sparrow King replied. He did mention this matter to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow explained, "I'm just making sure. If we can enter directly, we can just start the trial when we arrive at the trial grounds. There is no need to fight the Fire Phoenix King." "Yes, there is indeed no need." The Dragon Sparrow King transmitted his voice to Night Sorrow from within the clear sky pagoda. After thinking for a moment, he said, That's right. Spatial artifacts could not be used during the trial. Once we're inside, I can only transmit my voice to you. I can't be summoned to fight. If you have any important divine artifacts or pills, don't put them in your spatial artifact. All right. I understand. Night Sorrow replied and turned to look at Fire Phoenix King, who had already transformed into a phoenix. At this moment, her entire body was bathed in flames, causing the clouds in the sky to turn red. Still unable to catch up to Night Sorrow, the Fire Phoenix King was so angry that she spat out a wave of scorching flames, directly melting a green mountain below. Fire Phoenix King is already unable to restrain her anger. Seeing Fire Phoenix King's performance, the Dragon Sparrow King in the Clear Sky Pagoda could not help but laugh. Cao Ling, who had just recovered from her cultivation state, was a little afraid. That phoenix behind is so fierce. Ling, don't be afraid. She can't catch up to us. The Night Sorrow who comforted Cao Ling, actually still had the ability to continue accelerating. But that would require him to use the limitless body forging art. The gains did not make up for the losses. Challenger, you'd best never let this king catch up to you. The Fire Phoenix King who raised her speed to the limit was still unable to catch up to Night Sorrow. Her mentality collapsed. After chasing for another hour, her consumption was too great. She could not hold on and slowed down. However, she still flew in the direction of the challenge area. In reality, the Fire Phoenix King at this time was already in despair. She was clear that she could not catch up to Night Sorrow at all. During the flight she was somewhat listless. After shaking off the Fire Phoenix King, the Dragon Sparrow King smiled even more brightly and said, "What is your name?" "My name is Night Sorrow." The Night Sorrow who had slowed down a little replied. The Dragon Sparrow King continued, "If you bring me out of here, I will fight for you for a reincarnation cycle, Master Night Sorrow. How about it?" A reincarnation cycle? After hearing the Dragon Sparrow King's words, Night Sorrow thought for a moment and said, "Okay. A reincarnation cycle. In this reincarnation cycle, you have to do things according to my style of doing things." "Okay. Whatever Master Night Sorrow wants me to do, I, Dragon Sparrow King, will do." The Dragon Sparrow King nodded. After that, Night Sorrow did not say anything else. About 2 hours later, he flew to the challenge area mentioned by the Dragon Sparrow King. The giant stone array is the entrance to the challenge area? Night Sorrow, who was floating in the void, looked around and found that other than the continuous green mountains, there was only a giant stone array at the foot of the mountain. Yes. Entering the giant stone array will directly enter the small world of the challenge. The Dragon Sparrow King explained and continued, "At that time, I entered to help the camp of the Divine Realm to fight against the invaders. In the end, I failed to protect the city wall. I don't know what kind of challenge you will encounter. It is probably related to the Eternal Supreme World." Night Sorrow, who was secretly thinking, thought in his heart but did not say it out loud. He directly descended and walked into the giant stone array. However, after Night Sorrow walked into the giant stone array, he did not walk into any small world at all. He still stayed in place. What's going on? Does the giant stone array need something to activate? Standing in the giant stone array, Night Sorrow observed for a while with the sea serpent's eye and found that there were indeed array patterns on the giant stone array, but for some reason, it could not be activated. That's impossible. Any one of us can directly activate the giant stone array and enter the small world. The Dragon Sparrow King said speechlessly. At this time he walked out of the Haotian Pagoda and observed the giant stone array. He suddenly shouted, "Not good. If we can't enter, the Fire Phoenix King will be here in a while. The distance between us isn't that far. Do you want to set up a concealment array?" "There's no need for a concealment array. The Fire Phoenix King burned so much of her bloodline power, she should be very weak and won't be our match. As long as we can defeat the Fire Bat King and the Fire Dragon King before they arrive, it will be fine. The key now is how to activate the giant stone array. This is the key to our departure." Night Sorrow, who was still observing the giant stone array, was very confident about the two of them joining forces to defeat the Fire Phoenix King. What made him feel depressed was that the giant stone array in front of him could not be activated at all. Chapter 2781. Since Lord Night Sorrow is confident in dealing with the Fire Phoenix King, then I'm relieved. Through some of the things that had happened in the small world, Dragon Sparrow King had developed a strong confidence in Night Sorrow. Dragon Sparrow King, who did not want Night Sorrow to think that his information was wrong, thought for a moment and said, "Lord Night Sorrow, I think that the reason why you can't activate the array and enter the small world is because Lord Phoenix deliberately set it up. It's very likely that you need to meet some kind of requirement before you can enter the small world. That makes sense. While waiting for the Fire Phoenix King, Night Sorrow thought for a moment and felt that it made sense. Since Lord Phoenix had set up 7 kings in this world, he must have his reasons. The 7 kings should be the key to passing the stage. Currently, the Earth Dragon King and the Golden Wand King had been killed one after another. The Golden Python King had also died in battle. The Dragon Sparrow King had already submitted to him. Only the Fire Phoenix King, the Fire Bat King and the Fire Dragon King were left. It seems that Ancestor Phoenix's intention is to let me successfully conquer the 7 kings. Then the following battle is unavoidable. After analyzing it, Night Sorrow felt that this was very likely the case. Looking at the surrounding environment, he found that it was not suitable to set up the Stellar Transposition Array, so he quickly set up an array that could suppress cultivation. Because of the lack of time, this array was not as effective as the one against the Golden Wand King. However, it was better than nothing. Night Sorrow was very satisfied with this. It's coming. Prepare for battle. Just as the array was set up, less than 10 breaths of time, Night Sorrow used his soul power to sense the aura of the Fire Phoenix King. He knew that she was nearby. Because the Fire Phoenix King was in despair, her speed had decreased a lot. She felt that her only hope was that Night Sorrow could not pass the test. However, when she arrived near the giant stone array, she immediately detected Night Sorrow's aura. Looking around, the Fire Phoenix King saw that Night Sorrow was standing near the giant stone array and did not enter. She immediately said coldly, "What? You're not going in? Are you deliberately trying to anger this king?" She guessed that Yi Shang was purposely waiting for her so that she could personally witness the scene of her entering the small world. "I don't have that kind of hobby. I'm staying here because I want to fight you." Night Sorrow's body emitted a strong fighting spirit. If you want to fight this king, then why did you run away?" When Fire Phoenix King said this, she still didn't release her own divine domain. She didn't want to alert the enemy and scare Night Sorrow away. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and said, "The reason why I ran away was because I didn't want you guys to have the chance to fight 3 against 2. Now that you're the only one left, I'm ready to fight." You didn't want to fight 3 against 2, so you decided to fight 2 against 1. What a good plan. However, this king is not stupid. He will not enter your formation and fight 1 against 2. Fire Phoenix King transformed into her human form and stood in the air. She was a woman with a fiery aura, but her features were extremely cold. "You don't have a choice. If you don't come and fight, we'll immediately enter the trial grounds." Fire Phoenix King had been on guard the entire time. Dragon Sparrow King threatened. "Let's fight. I, Fire Phoenix King, am not afraid of you." This method was very shameless, but it was exactly what Fire Phoenix King wanted. She felt that even if she had to risk her life, she couldn't miss the opportunity in front of her. If she chose to stay in her own territory and never come out, then even the ruler couldn't do anything to her because she could resurrect infinitely in the lava pool. However, that world was too small, and Fire Phoenix King was simply not satisfied. She wanted to leave her own territory and leave the small world that bound her. Hearing Dragon Sparrow King's words, her mind was immediately stimulated. Her body bloomed with an astonishing brilliance, and she turned into a stream of light, directly blasting towards Night Sorrow and Dragon Sparrow King's position. "Come at me." Dragon Sparrow King's words were exactly what Fire Phoenix King wanted. Night Sorrow shouted, took out the heavenly Samsara halberd, and shot out the forbidden spear. He chose to fight head-on because he wanted to test Fire Phoenix King's strength before opening the formation. When Night Sorrow's forbidden spear collided with the Fire Phoenix King, the Dragon Sparrow King's choice was to escape. He felt that he wouldn't be able to withstand this attack, so he flew backwards. Boom. After a loud explosion, Fire Phoenix King changed from the appearance of a phoenix back to her human form and floated in the air. Yi Shang, on the other hand, was sent flying. In the face of absolute power, he, a middle-level divine lord, was still a little weaker. However, the strength of Night Sorrow's body was extremely terrifying. Even after suffering such a serious attack, he didn't suffer any serious injuries. Amazing. However, I advise you to use your ultimate skill as soon as possible. Night Sorrow, who had suffered some injuries, slowly stood up. He admired Fire Phoenix King, who had consumed so much of her bloodline, for her to still be able to unleash such an attack. At the same time, he activated the formation that restricted his cultivation. "You really set up a formation. However, it has no effect on this king. After Night Sorrow activated the formation, Fire Phoenix King immediately revealed a playful smile. She took out a blood-colored cloak from her spatial artifact. After the cloak was on her body, Fire Phoenix King, who had been weakened by the formation, immediately recovered. The formation is ineffective. You are not a match for the two of us. After confirming that the formation was ineffective against Fire Phoenix King, Night Sorrow wasn't too depressed. He quickly adjusted his state of mind. He, who had originally planned to continue using the Samsara halberd to fight for a while, immediately took out Tianyun Bao and poured his blood into it. Very quickly Tianyun Bao was completely activated. After being activated, Tianyun Bao let out a loud buzzing sound, causing the surrounding heaven and earth to tremble. Why is it different from usual? When he used Tianyun Bao's Night Sorrow, he discovered that it was a little strange and immediately checked it. He discovered that Tianyun Bao had suffered quite a bit of damage. It seems that I must repair Tianyun Bao's injuries as soon as possible. After today's battle, I can't use it for the time being. Noticing Tianyun Bao's injuries, Night Sorrow immediately decided that after the battle with Fire Phoenix King, he wouldn't use Tianyun Bao for a short period of time. However, in front of him he was fighting against Fire Phoenix King. Without hesitation he shot out the 5 elements arrow. Furthermore, he used the Divine Origin Dragon locking formation to temporarily bind Fire Phoenix King. The attack of a sovereign artifact. This king will receive it. After being temporarily bound, Fire Phoenix King reacted. She couldn't dodge the 5 elements arrow that was flying towards her. At this time, she simply pulled out her Phoenix Feather Sword to take it head-on. The 5 elements arrow was shot out by the sovereign artifact Tianyun Bao. However, in reality Tianyun Bao wasn't completely pulled apart. Furthermore, the material of the Heavenly Cloud arrow was basically Divine King's level. It was just that it had been strengthened by the Sovereign Stone. It was about the same strength as Fire Phoenix King's Phoenix Feather Sword. However, when she took the 5 elements arrow head-on, she was still sent flying in a sorry state. After receiving this attack, Fire Phoenix King felt as if her entire body had been fractured. Chapter 2782. Fire Phoenix King's words revealed absolute confidence. She knew that at the Monarch God realm, using a ruler artifact would consume a lot of energy. Night Sorrow couldn't use this level of attack more than a few times. As a member of the Phoenix race, her recovery ability was extremely strong. Although this level of injury had a large impact, she could completely recover in battle. However, Fire Phoenix King had overlooked one thing, and that was that she had underestimated Dragon Sparrow King and had not taken him into consideration at all. Although Dragon Sparrow King was the weakest among the 7 kings, he still had his own methods. Fire Phoenix King had just received a blow from Tianyun Bao and responded to Night Sorrow. Dragon Sparrow King took out a black jar from his spatial artifact and threw it at Fire Phoenix King. After the black jar was thrown out, it immediately sprayed a large amount of black blood at Fire Phoenix King's position. What is this? Fire Phoenix King, who could not dodge in time, discovered that the black jar was very strange. She could not dodge the black blood at all and immediately questioned Dragon Sparrow King. Hearing this, Dragon Sparrow King smiled and said, "You should be able to tell from the smell that this is the blood of the dark magic dragon. Any king-level artifact that is stained with this blood will temporarily lose its effect. Your cloak can no longer be used." As expected. After Dragon Sparrow King explained, Fire Phoenix King discovered that the blood-colored cloak on her body, after being stained by the black blood, no longer had any effect. The array immediately weakened her strength by a lot. After being weakened by the array, Fire Phoenix King was immediately annoyed. She felt that she should not be so careless in a life-and-death battle. Lord Night Sorrow continued to attack. Don't give her a chance to recover. She is a member of the Phoenix race and her recovery ability is very strong. Dragon Sparrow King, who had broken Fire Phoenix King's cloak, sent a voice transmission to Night Sorrow. At the same time he took out a spear made of Dragon Sparrow feathers and stabbed at Fire Phoenix King. This move did not seem to be profound, but Fire Phoenix King immediately felt that her life was in danger. What's going on? How can Dragon Sparrow King be so strong? Facing such a powerful Dragon Sparrow King, Fire Phoenix King was stunned. Not to mention Night Sorrow, who possessed a ruler artifact, but even the Dragon Sparrow King was so powerful. This made her feel extremely worried. If nothing unexpected happened, she would definitely lose today's battle. You are too arrogant. You are the same as the Golden Wand King. You don't even put us in your eyes. but as a king who doesn't have some special skills. Today we will defeat you. Dragon Sparrow King, who was mocking Fire Phoenix King, immediately poured a large amount of blood essence into the spear when it was about to pierce Fire Phoenix King. Activated by the Dragon Sparrow blood essence, a huge 5-clawed heavenly dragon flew out of the spear and attacked the Fire Phoenix King together with the spear. Earlier, when he fought the Golden Yuan King, he did not use his trump card no matter how dangerous the situation was. Now that he was fighting with his back against the wall, he was going all out. You are forcing this king to go all out. Facing the 5-clawed sky dragon summoned by the Dragon Sparrow King, the Fire Phoenix King put away the contempt she once had for the Dragon Sparrow King. She activated the Phoenix Feather Sword and summoned the Phoenix Weapon Spirit. The summoned Phoenix immediately pounced at the 5-clawed heavenly dragon and began fighting. In an instant, the sky turned dark. At the same time, the Fire Phoenix King used the Phoenix Feather Sword to block the attack of the spear. Her strength had been weakened and she was injured. She used all her strength to barely block the attack of the Dragon Sparrow King, who was at his peak. You blocked his attack. What about mine? Knight Sorrow knew that he had to cut the Gordian knot and defeat the Fire Phoenix King before the Fire Bat King and the Fire Dragon King arrived. He did not hold back either. After the Dragon Sparrow King's attack, he immediately used the Green Rock Soul-rending roar on the Fire Phoenix King to attack her soul. The Fire Phoenix King, who had just blocked the attacks of the Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King, did not react in time. Her soul was directly injured and she became much weaker. The Fire Phoenix King was a little flustered after being attacked continuously. She was injured again and felt a little sad and angry. However, before she could recover, the Dragon Sparrow King's next close combat attack had already arrived. He controlled the spear and attacked fiercely. As a result, the Fire Phoenix King did not even have time to finish her sentence. She once again held the Phoenix Feather Sword and fought with him. At this time, Knight Sorrow summoned 5 sky cloud arrows and shot them at the Fire Phoenix King again. The Fire Phoenix King, who was fighting with the Dragon Sparrow King, did not have the time to care about anything else. The 5-element arrows ruthlessly bombarded her body. She is about to die. Let's continue to attack together. The Dragon Sparrow King immediately shouted when he saw that the Fire Phoenix King was severely injured by the 5-element arrows. I know. However, although she is now an arrow at the end of its flight, if she is killed, it is very likely that she will be reborn. Knight Sorrow transmitted his voice to the Dragon Sparrow King and continued, therefore we have to capture her directly, instead of killing her. Indeed. If she is like the Golden Yuan King, she will be reborn after death and her strength will increase further. For us it will be a big problem. Lord Knight Sorrow, you've really thought it through. The Dragon Sparrow King praised. At the same time he shouted, Fire Phoenix King, you are definitely no match for us. Now Lord Knight Sorrow will give you a chance. As long as you make a heavenly oath and choose to submit, Lord Knight Sorrow will take you with him and leave the small world. What's the difference between submitting to him and being trapped in the small world? It's just a change of area and being enslaved. The Fire Phoenix King replied without hesitation after hearing the Dragon Sparrow King's words. The Fire Phoenix King's words made Knight Sorrow feel that the 7 kings were really pitiful. When the Dragon Sparrow King heard the Fire Phoenix King's words, his attitude was different. He said disdainfully, Fire Phoenix King, you mean that you have been enslaved by Lord Ancestor Phoenix? Don't forget that you were just an ordinary bird in the forest. If not for Lord Ancestor's care, how could you have the chance to awaken your spiritual intelligence? Maybe you would have died long ago. How could you have become the Divine King? You are completely ungrateful to think that way. Everyone's choice at every point in time is definitely different. The Fire Phoenix King did not refute the Dragon Sparrow King's words. However, she still insisted on her own thoughts. At this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air came from afar. The figure of the Fire Bat King appeared on the horizon. Sensing the aura of the Fire Bat King, the Fire Phoenix King immediately transmitted her voice, Come and save me. The Challenger and the Dragon Sparrow King have joined forces. Their strength is above this king. Yes, Lord. With me here, they won't be able to cause any trouble. The tone of the Fire Phoenix King's voice was very urgent. After the Fire Bat King received it, he immediately flew towards the location where the 3 of them were fighting. Seeing the Fire Bat King rushing over, the Dragon Sparrow King, who originally thought that he had the situation under control, suddenly became nervous. In fact, the reason why he was able to erupt with such combat strength was because he was burning his own blood essence. He wanted to quickly finish off the Fire Phoenix King. He did not expect that before the Fire Phoenix King was controlled, the Fire Bat King had already appeared. Chapter 2783. Thinking that the Fire WRM King might arrive soon, the Dragon Sparrow King immediately sent a voice transmission to Night Sorrow. Lord Night Sorrow, the situation is not good. What should we do? It was obvious that he was in a state of panic. Don't panic. Let's kill the Fire Phoenix King first. Even if she can revive, it will take time. This amount of time should be enough for us. Night Sorrow, who had thought of all sorts of possibilities, felt that at this moment he could not back down at all. Without thinking too much, he shot another 5 elements arrow at the Fire Phoenix King. He felt that if he killed the Fire Phoenix King and she did not revive, it would be good. She could revive, it would take time. As long as he and the Dragon Sparrow King worked together to kill the Fire Bat King, they would at least be able to solve half of the problem. If they were lucky, they could kill the Fire WRM King before the Fire Phoenix King revived. Then their chances of winning would increase by a lot. Are you saying that we should use the Fire Bat King's eagerness to save people and kill the Fire Phoenix King while she is undergoing nirvana? Good idea. Night Sorrow's idea was something that the Dragon Sparrow King had never thought of, or rather, he did not have the courage to think of it on his own. However, after hearing half a sentence, he immediately understood and said, "Then let's kill the Fire Phoenix King with all our might." While sending a voice transmission to Night Sorrow, the Dragon Sparrow King once again thrust his spear at the Fire Phoenix King. Night Sorrow did not immediately attack the Fire Phoenix King. Instead, he destroyed the Phoenix Artifact Spirit of the Phoenix Feather Sword. After the Phoenix Artifact Spirit was destroyed, the Artifact Spirit of the Dragon Sparrow King's spear immediately returned to its original body and erupted when it attacked the Fire Phoenix King. At the same time, when Night Sorrow destroyed the Phoenix Artifact Spirit of the Phoenix Feather Sword, the originally injured Fire Phoenix King could not help but spit out a large mouthful of blood. Obviously, the destruction of the Phoenix Feather Sword's artifact spirit had affected her as well. As a result, the Fire Phoenix King, who originally did not have much resistance, was completely unable to hold on and was pierced through the chest by the Dragon Sparrow King's spear. After the Dantian was shattered, the Fire Phoenix King's divine sea was also broken by the Dragon Sparrow King. My lord! The Fire Bat King, who had just broken into the array formation, happened to see the scene of the Fire Phoenix King being killed. He immediately charged toward the Dragon Sparrow King like a madman. In fact, he and the Fire WRM King did not have that many feelings for the Fire Phoenix King. However, the two of them had once sworn that if the Fire Phoenix King died, they would follow her. Otherwise, they would be punished by the Heavenly Tao. What are you talking about? He was already dead. There's only one Lord here and he's there. The Dragon Sparrow King, who had expended a lot of energy, didn't dare to fight the Fire Bat King head-on. When the Fire Bat King rushed over, he let go of the Fire Phoenix King's corpse and pointed at Night Sorrow. My lord, how are you? The Fire Bat King, who had snatched the Fire Phoenix King's corpse, shouted loudly. However, the Fire Phoenix King did not make any sound at all. Both of you must die. The death of the Fire Phoenix King was equivalent to him being killed. The Fire Bat King immediately exploded with anger. However, what responded to him was Night Sorrow's elemental arrow. Just now, the Dragon Sparrow King had used all his strength to kill the Fire Phoenix King. Night Sorrow did not make much of a move. At this time he had already recovered to his peak state. Divine Origin Dragon Lock Array. Seeing that the elemental arrow was about to reach the Fire Bat King's side, Night Sorrow immediately used the Dragon Lock Array. This was an array that he had learned a long time ago. Although the effect was not bad when used with his current cultivation, it seemed a little crude. It could only delay the powerful Divine King for a moment. However, for Night Sorrow and the elemental arrow, this moment was especially precious. The 5 sky cloud arrows all bombarded the Fire Bat King's Divine King and broke his protective divine domain. One of the sky cloud arrows even directly pierced through his chest. If the Fire Bat King had not been alert and dodged, his Dantian might have been directly shattered by this. What powerful strength! No wonder my lord was defeated. The Fire Bat King's strength was much weaker than the Fire Phoenix King's. Otherwise, his body would not have been directly pierced through by the sky cloud arrow. After being pierced through, the Fire Bat King felt relieved because he was not directly killed. After the Fire Bat King calmed down, he seized the opportunity to swallow a pellet to restore his body. Then he released his god domain again to sense the Dragon Sparrow King's condition. He laughed and said, So, you're already an arrow at the end of its flight. You are still a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. The Dragon Sparrow King, who had consumed a lot of energy, had almost lost his ability to fight, but he did not stop talking. Normally, he would not dare to be so arrogant with the Fire Bat King, but now that they had fallen out, he had nothing to worry about. A lamb waiting to be slaughtered? Ah, you used this word very well. The Fire Bat King, who was sizing up the Dragon Sparrow King, smiled and said, "Next, I'll let you know what a lamb waiting to be slaughtered is. Fire WRM King, I will delay the challenger. You go and kill the Dragon Sparrow King." What? The Fire WRM King has also arrived. Hearing that the Fire WRM King had also arrived, the Dragon Sparrow King immediately panicked. He immediately sent a voice transmission to Night Sorrow. "Lord Night Sorrow, I no longer have the ability to fight. Quickly put me into the spatial artifact." Where is he? The Dragon Sparrow King sent a voice transmission to Night Sorrow, but found that Night Sorrow was no longer in the array. His voice transmission also did not return. Why can't he come together? He is in this king's spatial artifact. Of course he will come together. At this time, the Fire Bat King said with a face full of regret. "It's all because the Fire Phoenix King chased us too quickly and didn't put us into the spatial artifact. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had a chance. Fire Bat King, I will go and kill the Dragon Sparrow King. You pay attention to the challenger." It feels a little strange that he suddenly disappeared. Also, the Lord seems to be recovering. The Fire WRM King, who came out of the Fire Bat King's spatial artifact, did not sense the existence of Night Sorrow, but found that the Fire Phoenix King's corpse had begun to burn. This was the sign of a phoenix's nirvana. As expected, the Lord still has a chance of being resurrected. As long as she is resurrected, we don't have to die. The Fire Bat King, who had also noticed the changes in the Fire Phoenix King's body, immediately became alert. He had originally thought that the Fire Phoenix King, who had left his territory, did not have the ability to be resurrected. Now this was a complete surprise. However, the Fire Bat King was also wondering where Night Sorrow had gone. After all, Night Sorrow had just shot the Heavenly Cloud 5 Elements arrow at him. He released the power of his soul to investigate but did not find any aura of Night Sorrow. He frowned and said, "Forget it. Let's kill the Dragon Sparrow King first." "Lord Night Sorrow, save me." The Fire Bat King and the Fire WRM King attacked him together. The Dragon Sparrow King immediately panicked and shouted loudly. Even if he was at his peak, he would not be a match for the two of them, let alone now that he had consumed a lot of energy. However, Night Sorrow still did not appear, nor did he reply with a voice transmission. Chapter 2784. What are you laughing at? I'm not scaring you, but one of you will soon be killed by Lord Night Sorrow. Facing the two of them, Dragon Sparrow King, who had no ability to resist, truly felt that he was in a hopeless situation. However, he naturally could not admit defeat verbally. He wanted to scare the Fire Bat King and the Fire WRM King. The Fire Bat King and the Fire WRM King, who had been focused on Dragon Sparrow King, did not pay attention to Night Sorrow. However, in this situation, they were clearly not prepared to let Dragon Sparrow King go. The two of them discussed via voice transmission and attacked at the same time, preparing to kill Dragon Sparrow King. This, Lord Night Sorrow. Help. Seeing that the Fire Bat King and the Fire WRM King had both used their destructive attacks, Dragon Sparrow King could not hold on any longer. "Don't panic. I didn't appear on purpose. I placed you in a conspicuous place." At this time, Night Sorrow's voice suddenly sounded in Dragon Sparrow King's heart. "Lord Night Sorrow, what attack are you preparing?" When Dragon Sparrow King heard Night Sorrow's voice, it was as if he had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. His ugly expression became much more normal. Seeing Dragon Sparrow King's expression, the Fire Bat King and the Fire WRM King looked at each other, but they did not stop attacking. Night Sorrow, who was hiding in the void, said to Dragon Sparrow King, "You don't have to be afraid. When they are about to attack you, I will summon you into the spatial artifact. What I want to do now is to put the Fire Phoenix King into the spatial artifact. First, I can control the flow of time and slow down her nirvana by 100 times. The second is to undergo nirvana in a spatial artifact. No matter how strong she is still a threat." Good idea. Why didn't I think of it? Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Dragon Sparrow King's heart trembled. He had indeed not thought of this. "Actually, I just thought of it. It's a brainwave. Come in." At this time, Night Sorrow had sneaked into the surroundings of the Fire Phoenix King, who was unconscious, and directly put her into the Clear Sky Pagoda. Then he quickly put Dragon Sparrow King inside. There is 100 times acceleration and deceleration here. Hurry up and recover. Let's fight side by side. Good? Alright. The Dragon Sparrow King, who had responded, was in high spirits as he hurriedly nodded in agreement. Soon after, he swallowed medicinal pills in the vast Heaven Pagoda to recover. However, the blood essence he had consumed was the power of his bloodline. It was slightly difficult for him to recover it, so his progress was relatively slow. And Night Sorrow naturally exposed his aura when he took the Fire Phoenix King and Dragon Sparrow King into the vast Heaven Pagoda. Although there were still concealing runes on his body, the Fire Bat King and the Fire WRM King had already discovered it. Realizing that Night Sorrow had put the Fire Phoenix King into his spatial artifact, the Fire Bat King and the Fire WRM King both went crazy. As the Fire Bat King flapped his wings, he threatened, "Hurry up and release the Fire Phoenix King or the two of us will tear you apart." Do you think you have the strength to say such words? Facing the Fire Bat King's Night Sorrow, he showed no signs of fear. "You are courting death. Fire WRM King, you and I will kill him immediately." The Fire Bat King was so angry that his head was about to explode when the Fire Phoenix King was taken into his spatial artifact. After sending a voice transmission to the Fire WRM King, he transformed into a Fire Bat and launched a soul attack on Night Sorrow. This attack of the Fire Bat King, who had transformed into a Fire Bat, was a unique skill. It was extremely harmful to the soul. Even Night Sorrow found it difficult to resist, and his soul was immediately damaged. However, what he used to receive this attack was the soul in his second Divine Sea. Although it was damaged for the time being, as long as he didn't get hit again, it wouldn't be a big problem. Night Sorrow had already seen through the previous move when he opened the Sea Serpent's Eye, but there was no way to dodge it. However, if the Fire Bat King used it again, he would definitely be able to dodge it. He was hit by this King's Soul Extermination kill. Fire WRM King attack. When the Fire Bat King's attack succeeded, he saw that the Fire WRM King did not attack and immediately reminded him loudly, "I feel that there's something fishy about this. I'm afraid that he'll absorb the attack into his spatial artifact. That might cause devastating damage to the Fire Phoenix King." The Fire WRM King sent a voice transmission with a solemn expression. This was the reason why he didn't attack immediately. "What time is it now? Do you still have time to think about such things? What we need to do is give him a lot of pressure. In the face of life and death, how can he have time to think about things in his spatial artifact?" The Fire Bat King was a little worried about the Fire WRM King's worries, but he felt that the two of them couldn't be tied down. "Alright, let's attack together." The Fire WRM King, who was originally a little worried, thought that was the case. After replying, he took out a golden dark steel pitchfork and floated it above his head. At the same time, he transformed into a Fire WRM. When the Fire Bat King launched another soul attack on Night Sorrow, he spat out flames and used his blood to activate the pitchfork above his head, smashing it towards Night Sorrow. A soul attack is not enough. At this moment, Night Sorrow directly used the Green Rock soul-rending roar to shatter the Fire Bat King's soul attack. He used the profound heaven roaming dragon steps to disappear into the void, dodging the Fire Bat King's flame attack. Then he used the Samsara halberd to launch a forbidden spear attack, sending the Fire WRM King's dark steel pitchfork flying. He didn't hesitate at all in this continuous response. "You have some strength. Even if you don't have a ruler artifact, you're not a divine lord. You're about as strong as a mid-level divine king." After seeing Night Sorrow's performance, the Fire Bat King made a judgment in his heart. Although Night Sorrow's cultivation was a mid-level divine lord, his strength was about the same as a mid-level divine king's. In his opinion, this was inconceivable. However, the Fire Phoenix King was undergoing nirvana in Night Sorrow's spatial artifact. The Fire Bat King couldn't remain calm at all. After his attack didn't succeed, he immediately sent a voice transmission to the Fire WRM King. "I can feel that we're deep in his formation. We can't use our strongest attack, so we'll just ignite our bloodline." "Alright, I have the same idea. In this formation, I can only unleash the strength of a mid-level divine king at most. This feeling is very stifling." As the Fire WRM King replied to the Fire Bat King, he immediately used a secret technique to ignite his bloodline, instantly increasing his strength by several times. "Try to kill him as quickly as possible. If this kind of consumption continues for too long, we won't be able to afford it." The Fire Bat King, who had also ignited his bloodline, said to the Fire WRM King before launching another attack on Night Sorrow. This time he took out his divine artifact from his spatial artifact. It was a somewhat strangely shaped wooden fish. This dark brown wooden fish had a very large mouth. After it was taken out, it immediately emitted a faint chanting of Buddhist scriptures. However, these Buddhist scriptures were clearly somewhat evil. They were all evil curses. There's actually such an evil divine artifact. When the Fire Bat King took out the wooden fish divine artifact, Night Sorrow immediately felt that his soul had been greatly affected. Chapter 2785. Lord Night Sorrow, this divine artifact of the Fire Bat King is very strange, but I happen to have a divine artifact that can crack it. Dragon Sparrow King, who was in the Clear Sky Pagoda, noticed that Night Sorrow was a little passive. He immediately took out the black jar that he had used against the Fire Phoenix King from his spatial artifact and handed it to Night Sorrow. Find an opportunity and smash the black jar at the Fire Bat King's divine artifact. It can temporarily seal it. Okay, I'll try. After Night Sorrow obtained Dragon Sparrow King's black jar divine artifact, he immediately used a divine talisman refined by Dragon Sparrow King and used the dragon steps to speed up. He closed the distance between him and the Fire Bat King and smashed the black jar divine artifact at the other party's wooden fish. When the black jar approached the wooden fish, it immediately poured out foul black gas and black water, directly enveloping the wooden fish. The wooden fish that was enveloped immediately quieted down and no longer made any sound. When Night Sorrow saw this, he was immediately overjoyed and said, "Dragon Sparrow King, this divine artifact of yours is really not simple. It's really useful." The wooden fish stopped its special ability to corrode the soul, and Night Sorrow felt his entire body relax. He found an opportunity to activate the Tianyun Bow and shoot the Heavenly Cloud 5-element arrow at the wooden fish. He was prepared to use the divine artifact to directly destroy the wooden fish. Bastard. Dragon Sparrow King's broken jar is really a hindrance. Seeing Night Sorrow use the black jar to destroy the wooden fish and shoot the 5-element arrow, the Fire Bat King cursed and put the wooden fish back into his spatial artifact. He wasn't sure if the wooden fish could withstand the attack of a sovereign divine artifact. At this moment, the Fire Bat King completely understood that Night Sorrow's true strength was at the Divine King's level. A Divine King using a sovereign divine artifact's attack power could be imagined. Unconsciously he was a little afraid. However, after Night Sorrow's attack attacked the wooden fish, it quickly changed direction and flew toward the Fire WRM King at an extremely fast speed. It bombarded the Fire WRM King's steel fork. There was a loud rumble. The 5 sky cloud arrows all exploded, but the Fire WRM King's pitchfork was also completely destroyed. This was considered a suicidal attack. The Fire WRM King, who hadn't reacted in time, roared furiously. "What are you shouting for? I still have a backup plan waiting for you." After the Fire WRM King's steel fork was shattered, Night Sorrow immediately used the dragon steps to approach the Fire WRM King. He raised the Tianyun Bow and slapped it at him. "Fire Bat King, help me." When the Fire WRM King saw that Night Sorrow was using his Dominator divine weapon as a close combat weapon, he was at a loss for what to do. He hurriedly shouted for the Fire Bat King to help. I know. How could he just watch with folded arms? You can't take a sovereign artifact head-on. Be careful. I'll attack him with all my might. At the same time, the Fire Bat King turned into a human and attacked Night Sorrow. The Fire Bat's body was too big and it was not agile enough. It was not suitable for close combat. The two Divine Kings who have ignited their bloodlines are indeed not easy to deal with. Night Sorrow, who had been using the Tianyun Bow to suppress the Fire WRM King, immediately felt a huge pressure when the Fire Bat King approached. Almost every time he threatened the Fire WRM King, the Fire Bat King's threat also arrived. The combination of the Fire Bat King and the Fire WRM King made him very uncomfortable. To be honest, it was difficult to win 1 against 2. After all, Night Sorrow had already used most of his abilities. At this moment he asked, "Dragon Sparrow King, how is your recovery?" Although the Dragon Sparrow King's true combat strength was weaker than the Fire Bat King and the Fire WRM King, it was very important that he could temporarily hold one of them back. The Dragon Sparrow King, who was in the Clear Heaven Pagoda, heard Night Sorrow's voice transmission and immediately replied apologetically, "I still need a while. But the good news is that the Fire Phoenix King beside me doesn't seem to have a smooth rebirth, and her energy seems to be leaking." "Is that so?" Night Sorrow, who originally did not have the energy to pay attention to the Fire Phoenix King, heard the Dragon Sparrow King's words and immediately used his injured second divine soul to check. He discovered that there was indeed a problem with the Fire Phoenix King's rebirth. The flame energy around her was constantly spreading into the clear heaven pagoda. It seemed that everything was not going smoothly. I have an idea. Although the Dragon Sparrow King had not recovered well, Night Sorrow, who discovered that the Fire Phoenix King's energy was leaking, immediately thought of a way. He immediately absorbed the energy that the Fire Phoenix King was leaking. Continuously absorbing the energy, Night Sorrow felt as if his strength had instantly increased by a small realm. If not for the fact that his body was strong enough, absorbing the flame energy in such a tyrannical manner would very likely cause his body to collapse. The feeling of absorbing external energy is really uncomfortable. However, the feeling of having one's strength increase is indeed not bad. Night Sorrow, who was originally struggling to fight against the Fire Bat King and the Fire WRM King, had temporarily increased his cultivation to the level of a high divine lord. At this time he no longer chose to fight in close combat. Instead, he distanced himself from the Fire Bat King and the Fire WRM King. Then he took out the remaining 4 heavenly cloud arrows and transformed the Samsara heavenly halberd into the shape of an arrow. He aimed at the void and shot the heavenly cloud 5 elements arrow. Who is this shot at? The Fire Bat King and the Fire WRM King were clearly somewhat stunned the moment Night Sorrow shot the 5 elements arrow. Because Night Sorrow did not aim at the 2 of them at all, they did not feel like they were locked on. This was very strange. Not good. This attack is accompanied by a divine soul attack. Fire WRM King, be careful. Very soon, the Fire Bat King, who was very proficient in divine soul attacks, reacted and reminded the Fire WRM King to be careful. However, the divine soul attack of the 5 elements arrow was completely traceless. How could the Fire WRM King have the ability to resist? His divine sea was directly shattered. You guys have lost. Night Sorrow, who had increased his strength, stimulated Tianyun Bao's special energy and directly shattered the Fire WRM King's divine sea. Then he controlled the 5 elements arrow and shot it in the direction of the Fire WRM King. At the same time he used the Black Sky Dragon roaming steps and attacked the Fire WRM King. Fire WRM King, quick, enter this king's spatial artifact. At this moment the Fire Bat King was clearly a little flustered. He immediately used his spatial artifact and wanted to put the Fire WRM King inside. However, the Fire WRM King's divine sea was already shattered. How could it respond to his ability? There was no reaction at all. The Samsara heavenly halberd directly pierced through his dantian. Fire Bat King, you're the only one left. After defeating the Fire WRM King, Night Sorrow looked at the Fire Bat King. He knew that the Fire Bat King had no intention of retreating. At the same time, the Fire WRM King's body rapidly lost its luster and directly disappeared into the void. Clearly he no longer had the ability to revive. This king is the only one left. He's enough to deal with you. The Fire Bat King roared and released a terrifying sound wave attack at Night Sorrow. This was another of his secret techniques. However, to Night Sorrow, whose strength had increased, this kind of attack no longer posed much of a threat. At the same time that he easily blocked it, the Dragon Sparrow King in the Clear Sky Pagoda said, Lord Night Sorrow, I've almost recovered. Next it's our turn to fight 2 against 1. Alright. Come out and fight with me. Although he had absorbed the Fire Phoenix King's energy, Night Sorrow's consumption was still very great. He immediately summoned the Dragon Sparrow King. After the Dragon Sparrow King was summoned, the Fire Bat King, who was fighting to the death, was quickly destroyed. Chapter 2786. After being sucked into the tunnel, after tumbling for a while without any concept of time, Night Sorrow was teleported to another giant stone formation. This giant stone formation was almost exactly the same as the one outside, but the surrounding environment was clearly different. Night Sorrow used his divine soul power to investigate and discovered that this was a pitch-black world. There was not a trace of light. Above the sky there was no sun or moon at all. There were only occasional birds that blotted out the sky and covered the sun. If not for opening the sea serpent eye, he would not be able to see anything clearly at all. He was not used to it at all. Dragon Sparrow King, is the trial ground that you entered also like this? After investigating for a while, within 1,000,000 miles, other than some feather god and high god level birds and beasts, there were no other races. Night Sorrow asked doubtfully. No. The trial ground that I entered was not dark. Is the sun setting right now? The Dragon Sparrow King in the vast heaven pagoda said with a frown. The trial ground that he entered was much brighter than here, and it was accompanied by light from beginning to end. Whether it's dark or not isn't the key. The main thing is that it's different from the trial ground that you entered. Perhaps all the rules will be different. Continuing to use his divine soul power to investigate the surrounding night sorrow, just as he was about to open his mouth and discuss with the Dragon Sparrow King what to do next, he suddenly felt a majestic energy rise up from the vast heaven pagoda. It was actually the Fire Phoenix King who had been reborn at this juncture. You actually persevered? Night Sorrow, who had absorbed nearly half of the Fire Phoenix King's energy, immediately transmitted. Thanks to you, although this king succeeded in nirvana, his strength did not rise but fell instead. After the Fire Phoenix King in the vast heaven pagoda realized where he was, he frowned and said, "Now that this king has fallen into your hands, how are you going to resolve the grudge between us? You are in my spatial artifact, your life and death are already in my control. Do you admit this or not?" Night Sorrow did not immediately say what he meant, but instead asked the Fire Phoenix King a question. Hearing this, the Fire Phoenix King snorted coldly and said angrily, "If you want to kill me, then say it. I, the Fire Phoenix King, have fallen into your hands today. There is nothing I don't dare to admit. What I need you to do is very simple. That is to use your knowledge and experience to help me succeed. Once I leave this place, I will release you." Night Sorrow thought for a moment and said. To him, the Fire Phoenix King and he only had different standpoints. There was no deep hatred between them. When Fire Phoenix King heard Night Sorrow say this, she didn't believe him and asked, "That's it? Are you serious?" "Of course I'm serious. I don't need anything else from you. You can think about it and then tell me if you're willing to help," Night Sorrow said firmly. He felt that the only thing in front of him was to pass the trial successfully. Everything else was not important. What's there to consider? If you can swear an oath to the heavens, I, the Fire Phoenix King, will do my best to help you succeed, Fire Phoenix King said without hesitation. Originally, she thought that Night Sorrow would definitely make things difficult for her, but she did not expect that the matter would be so easy to resolve. At this time, the Dragon Sparrow King in the vast heaven pagoda sneered and said, "How can the person chosen by Lord Phoenix be someone who goes back on his word? Until now you still haven't thought it through. Your defeat is not unjust." Dragon Sparrow King's words made Fire Phoenix King immediately fall silent. She indeed did not think of this. At this time, when Dragon Sparrow King said it, it made her think of many things in an instant. She thought to herself, how can the person chosen by Lord Phoenix be someone I can defeat? Following that, she was silent for a while. Then she opened her mouth and said, "I promise you, I will help you with all my strength, but when I leave the small world, you have to let me go free." Good. Look at the surrounding environment. When you were trying to pass the trial, did you experience it? Night Sorrow opened his mouth and let Fire Phoenix King observe the pitch-black surroundings. Although she was unable to release the power of Divine Soul, the silent darkness was clear at a glance. After observing for a while, Fire Phoenix King thought for a while and said, "I think I've seen it before." "Seen it before? Think about it again." When Dragon Sparrow King heard Fire Phoenix King's words, he immediately became interested. Night Sorrow also said expectantly, "Think about it carefully and see if you can remember anything." He knew that Fire Phoenix King had just been reborn. Her memories of the past would be a little blurry and she would need time to adapt. "All right. I'll try my best to think about it. Right now, I can only remember a vague shadow." Fire Phoenix King, who had transformed into her human form, frowned as she thought about her past experience. After thinking for about 6 hours, her expression suddenly changed and she said, "I remember now. But it's definitely bad news." "Bad news?" Night Sorrow immediately asked in puzzlement. "Yes, bad news," Fire Phoenix King replied and continued, "I remember that when we were trying to pass the trial, someone once mentioned that the world of darkness was the habitat of the extraterrestrial creatures. Therefore, we are most likely in the territory of the extraterrestrial creatures." "How strong are the extraterrestrial creatures?" After Fire Phoenix King spoke, Night Sorrow immediately set up a concealment array around his body. If what she said was true, then it would be very dangerous. This was equivalent to killing his way to the back of the enemy alone. When I was trying to pass the trial, there were 5 Divine King among the enemy forces and only 2 on the side of the Divine Realm. Therefore I failed. Mentioning her failure, Fire Phoenix King added, "That's right. Everyone has more than one chance to pass the trial. However, every time you fail, the difficulty of the next trial will increase by 10 times. You must cherish the first opportunity in front of you. Don't worry. I want to pass the trial more than anyone else. Night Sorrow replied and continued, tell me everything you know. All right. At that time, my process of passing the trial was not smooth, but I came into contact with the creatures of the world of darkness. They can hide in the darkness and attack without anyone noticing. In the darkness, their combat strength is 3 times stronger than in the light. Therefore, every time they attack the cultivator area of the divine realm, it is carried out in the night. Recalling some of the experiences of passing the trial, Fire Phoenix King did not hold back. At this time, she also hoped that Night Sorrow would be able to pass the trial successfully. After all, both sides could be considered to have common interests. Through Fire Phoenix King's narration, Night Sorrow understood a lot. At this time he asked Dragon Sparrow King, what happened when you passed the trial? Were the enemies different? And completely different. What I encountered were the enemies of the blood world. They are a group of bloodthirsty evil creatures. They can change their form at will, just like blood water. It is very difficult to kill them. Thinking of his battle experience, Dragon Sparrow King said with lingering fear. Chapter 2787. Although he had successfully been reborn, the terrifying experience of death made him feel incomparably terrified every time he recalled it. He did not want to experience it again. It seems that everyone's experience is different. But it's not simple. After Dragon Sparrow King recounted his experience from beginning to end, Night Sorrow thought for a moment and said, I have a rough understanding of it. That's enough. Fire Phoenix King said, we are now in the dark world, so we must be extra careful. This is very likely the territory of the dark creatures. The situation you are facing now is much more difficult than the 2 of us. Just be careful. After Night Sorrow replied, he left the concealment array, chose a direction and walked forward. Moving forward in the endless darkness, even Night Sorrow felt a strong sense of danger. He clearly knew that he had to succeed this time. There was no room for failure. As for the Feather God and Upper Body Realm birds and beasts in the void, Night Sorrow carefully observed them and found that they were originally creatures of the heavenly realm, but they had lost their intelligence and were all drifting aimlessly. This should have been the territory of the heavenly realm, but it was swallowed by the dark world. All the creatures of the heavenly realm have become like this. Fire Phoenix King said with emotion. Seeing thousands of creatures of the heavenly realm become like this, she could not bear it. And this cruel scene became even more cruel as Night Sorrow continued to go deeper. Not long after, they saw a creature of the dark world devouring the wandering creatures of the heavenly realm. This creature of the dark world had the cultivation of a high-level divine lord. Its entire body was pitch black and merged with the night. Night Sorrow used the sea serpent's eye, which had adapted to a lot, to observe it and saw that the mountain-sized creature was swallowing everything. The unconscious creatures of the heavenly realm were swallowed into its mouth like shrimps and chewed non-stop. Bastard. Using creatures of the heavenly realm as food. Damn it. After seeing what was happening, Night Sorrow immediately took out the Samsara heavenly halberd and attacked the giant dark creature in front of him. A living cultivator of the heavenly realm? The dark creature that discovered Night Sorrow was stunned at first, then it laughed loudly and said, a cultivator from the divine world actually dares to enter the territory of darkness? You're courting death. Let me, Eternal Darkness King, send you on your way. In the process of replying, Eternal Darkness King suddenly turned into the night and disappeared above the void. As a result, Night Sorrow's attack had no effect at all. Good move. The sea serpent dragons I should have suffered greatly in such an environment. Night Sorrow couldn't help but praise him for not being able to determine his opponent's whereabouts at the first moment. At the same time he unleashed the Azure Rock soul-rending roar and attacked the surrounding space in a domineering manner. A single roar is so powerful. This is the strength of the Divine King. After Night Sorrow's roar, it directly dealt a heavy blow to Eternal Darkness King, who had blended into the night. After discovering that Night Sorrow had the strength of the Divine King, he immediately used his means to report this matter. Oh no. Lord Night Sorrow, our whereabouts have been exposed, and it's very likely that we'll be greeted by the enemy's magnificent army. The 2 of us can't go out, so you can only rely on yourself. What should we do? After discovering that Eternal Darkness King had been severely injured by Night Sorrow, he immediately reported. Dragon Sparrow King, who was in the Clear Sky Pagoda, immediately had a solemn expression. What else can we do? We'll deal with whatever comes our way. I'm not afraid of the number of enemies. I only hope that the Divine King has fewer enemies. While Eternal Darkness King was reporting, Night Sorrow once again roared out the third move of the Azure Rock Soul-rending roar, triple roar shattering cycle. Eternal Peace King, who only cared about reporting, was immediately killed and turned into dust, disappearing into the void. It seems that this kind of dark creature is afraid of large-scale attacks, especially spiritual attacks. As for the attacks brought by divine artifacts, they're not very useful because their figures are very difficult to capture. Dragon Sparrow King said when he saw that Night Sorrow had succeeded. It's like this. Once, when I fought with the Dark Divine King, the situation was similar. However, at that time they were fighting in the territory of the Divine Realm, so their special abilities were not too terrifying. Now, it seems that their methods of merging into the void in their own territory are much more brilliant. We must pay more attention. Fire Phoenix King also said with some worry. The main problem now is that we have no sense of direction. We don't know which direction to go. Night Sorrow's situation was somewhat different from the two of them. He was not afraid of ordinary dark creatures. After all, he had the power of merit in his body. This is indeed a problem. If there are too many dark creatures, even if your strength is tyrannical, you will soon be unable to hold on due to excessive consumption. Fire Phoenix King said with a frown. She felt that the matter was not simple. At present, the best choice is to hide and wait for the battle. Night Sorrow replied. Originally, he wanted to set up a concealment array in the void, but he realized that the materials were all in the spatial artifact. Thus, he gave up on this idea and found a towering mountain peak. At the hillside, he dug a cave and temporarily hid. He knew that it would not be long before the dark creatures descended. If possible, Night Sorrow was prepared to use the dark creatures to increase his power of merit. The power of merit that he had just obtained from killing Eternal Darkness King was greater than the consumption. However, after waiting for 2 months, there were still no dark creatures descending. Fire Phoenix King, what do you think of Lord Night Sorrow? Dragon Sparrow King, who was in the Clear Heaven Pagoda, was somewhat bored and sent a voice transmission to Fire Phoenix King. In this illusion he was somewhat anxious. Hearing this question, Fire Phoenix King asked, "What do you mean?" "What I mean is, what do you think Lord Night Sorrow will do in order to succeed?" Dragon Sparrow King continued. "I can't see clearly." Fire Phoenix King spoke out her thoughts. At this time Dragon Sparrow King laughed and said, "It's not an exaggeration to say that I feel that his future achievements should not be lower than Lord Ancestor Phoenix. Therefore, I have the heart to follow him. I advise you to hurry up and hug his thigh before he grows up." "I don't believe it. Lord Ancestor Phoenix has already transcended the divine realm and is not something that anyone can catch up to." Fire Phoenix King looked at Night Sorrow and said, "He is the same. Let's wait and see. It won't be long before he completely rises." Dragon Sparrow King looked at Night Sorrow with eyes full of trust and expectation. Fire Phoenix King could not understand this gaze. She shook her head and continued to observe the situation outside. It was still pitch black outside and the cave was even darker. Nothing could be seen clearly. Fire Phoenix King simply went to teach Cao Linger how to cultivate. Just like this, another half a year passed and the dark creatures still did not appear. Night Sorrow felt that he could not wait any longer, so he went out of the cave and headed straight in the direction of the entrance. Chapter 2788. This was a dark creature of equal strength to Eternal Darkness King. After discovering him, Night Sorrow immediately used the virtuous dragon lock formation on him. Having already fought with Eternal Darkness King, he already had a certain understanding of dark creatures and didn't want to probe further. After the virtuous dragon lock formation was used, the dark creature was immediately bound inside. He was only at the monarch god level and had no ability to break free. Being locked in a sealed space, he immediately panicked. He merged into the void of the sealed space, but after trying he realized that there was no way to leave. "Don't try to escape. Tell me everything you know." Night Sorrow, who had bound the dark creature, immediately shouted, "Cultivator of the heavenly realm, why are you in our territory?" Hearing Night Sorrow's voice, the dark creature immediately determined his identity and was instantly terrified. This was because this was the depths of the dark territory. Since its birth, no cultivator of the heavenly realm had appeared. "Don't be curious as to why I'm in the dark territory. Hand over the map of the dark territory and tell me everything you know." As Night Sorrow threatened, he also used some of his power of merit. Being burned by the golden power of virtue, the dark creature in the sealed space immediately let out a cry. The power of virtue's damage to dark creatures was more exaggerated than Night Sorrow had imagined. We don't have a map here. At the same time, the bound dark creature replied, also you won't get any information from me, the King of Eternal Darkness. You're still a very righteous dark creature? In that case, I won't make things difficult for you. Go to hell. After hearing King of Eternal Darkness's words, Night Sorrow pondered for a moment and directly used the green rock soul-splitting roar on the virtuous dragon lock formation. After being shaken by the green rock soul-splitting roar, the dark creature's body almost completely collapsed. It was difficult for it to regroup. You, King of Eternal Darkness, didn't expect that Night Sorrow would directly kill him with just a question. You what? If you don't speak, go to hell. You are not the only dark creature in the dark territory. Night Sorrow, on the other hand, had no intention of showing any mercy as he struck again. Facing the taboo spear, King of Evernight had no ability to resist because his divine soul had been severely injured. Seeing that he was about to be blasted into pieces, he immediately begged for mercy. Lord of the God Realm, I beg you to let me go. I will definitely tell you everything I know. Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up and tell me. Night Sorrow said resolutely. He believed that even the dark creatures could sense his attitude. Yes, I'll talk. Evernight King. Although the name sounded domineering, he was, in fact, doomed. Even Eternal Darkness King was no match for him. He said, this is the center of the Dark Territory. The Dark Territory is located between the Crimson Territory and the Heavenly Diabolism Territory. If you want to go to the gathering place of the Celestial Realm cultivators, just go straight ahead. Right now there's a huge war going on over there. Flourishing Age is huge, so it's easy to find them. The Dark Territory is between the Bloody Territory and the Heavenly Diabolism Territory? You mean that there's not only the Dark Territory in this world? There are other creatures that attack the Celestial Realm? Night Sorrow immediately asked. At this time, Dragon Sparrow King in the Clear Sky Pagoda said, Lord Night Sorrow, the Crimson Territory is the enemy I encountered when I was breaking through. I remember. Night Sorrow replied and waited for Evernight King to say something. However, Evernight King did not speak. Night Sorrow immediately scolded, what are you hesitating for? So you don't even know about the 7 territories surrounding the Celestial Realm. The Celestial Realm is at the center, surrounded by the 7 territories. Evernight King said and then asked, you don't even know about these things, are you not from the Celestial Realm? This has nothing to do with you. I promise to let you go, you can go now. Night Sorrow said and did not ask Evernight King anymore and directly let him go. Lord Night Sorrow, why didn't you ask anything and let him go? This way he will leak information. You should have killed him directly. Dragon Sparrow King immediately said anxiously when he saw Night Sorrow let Evernight King go. What I meant just now was that if he said something useful, I would let him go. It's not my style to go back on my words. After letting Evernight King go, Night Sorrow directly rushed towards the Celestial Realm according to the direction he said. With a direction, he no longer ran around like a headless fly. As for whether Evernight King would report it or not, he did not care at all. According to Night Sorrow's judgment, the 7 territories were currently besieging the Celestial Realm. Some of the stronger divine kings should have already joined the battle. Alright. Lord Night Sorrow has his own principles, this is a merit. Dragon Sparrow King said worriedly, it's just that. Currently, the 7 territories are fighting against the Celestial Realm. The other party's divine king is at least 20 years old. Among the cultivators of the Celestial Realm that the 2 of us came into contact with, including the hidden background, there are no more than 3 divine kings. How are we going to fight against this? If the Celestial Realm was destroyed, it would obviously be a failure. Dragon Sparrow King was a little anxious. Night Sorrow shook his head and said, you have to understand Lord Ancestor Phoenix's mentality. Since this is a test, he will only set the difficulty of the challenge higher, and it is not impossible to pass. If we rush over immediately, we will definitely make it in time. As for how to turn the tables, we will adapt to it when the time comes. That makes sense. How wise is Lord Ancestor Phoenix? How could he leave behind a trap that cannot be solved? Fire Phoenix King in the Clear Sky Pagoda agreed with Night Sorrow's words. She, who was holding Cowlinger's hand, nodded and said, if you understand it this way, it should be the case. After understanding the cause and effect, Dragon Sparrow King immediately calmed down. At this moment, Fire Phoenix King suddenly slapped her forehead and said, right? I just remembered something. Something very important. What is it? Tell me. Night Sorrow immediately said. In the past, I heard from the cultivators of the celestial realm that each of the 7 territories has its own origin. In other words, the source of energy. As long as the origin of the darkness territory is destroyed, the strength of the creatures in the darkness territory will decrease by a lot. They will drop by at least 2 small realms. Fire Phoenix King said excitedly. For example, an upper-level divine king will be reduced to a lower-level divine king. If it is a lower-level divine king, he will be reduced to a middle-level divine lord. Instead of going to the celestial realm to help, we might as well take advantage of the empty rear of the darkness territory to destroy the darkness origin. Are you sure about this matter? Hearing Fire Phoenix King say this, Night Sorrow immediately asked. If this matter was true, then he would not hesitate to search for the darkness origin. Of course I'm sure. This king won't joke about this kind of thing. Fire Phoenix King had not used this king's name for a long time, but at this moment she said coldly. Good. This information is very valuable. I'll go destroy the darkness origin. After receiving Fire Phoenix King's confirmation, Night Sorrow immediately changed his direction and searched for the darkness creatures in the darkness territory. Chapter 2789. After searching for about an hour in the dark territory, he finally encountered a God Monarch level dark creature. When he got closer, Night Sorrow realized that the dark creature he encountered was actually Eternal Night King again. He immediately felt that the other party was a little unlucky. At this moment, the King of Eternal Darkness was wandering in the void. After encountering Night Sorrow again, Eternal Night King immediately sent a voice transmission in horror. Didn't you say you would let me go? You can't go back on your words. That's already the last time. Now, I want to ask you something again. Night Sorrow didn't attack. He opened his mouth to reply and continued, Tell me, where is the origin of the dark territory? The origin of the dark territory? You want to destroy it? I can't tell you this. Upon hearing the 2 words, Eternal Night King immediately became alert and repeatedly rejected Night Sorrow. Hurry up and say it. I know you're not a strong-willed existence. Night Sorrow released his divine domain and surrounded Eternal Night King, giving him great pressure. I just want to live a little more comfortably. Why are you, a divine realm cultivator, so overbearing? Eternal Night King felt Night Sorrow's divine domain suppressing him and was a little flustered. He started to complain. It sounded like he was very humane. Fire Phoenix King in the Clear Sky Pagoda hurriedly reminded, These dark creatures are extremely sinister and cunning. Don't be fooled by his current appearance. There are no good people among the dark creatures at all. Don't worry. I know. Night Sorrow, who was cultivating the power of virtue, replied confidently. He could feel that the current Eternal Night King wasn't as evil as Eternal Darkness King, but he was definitely not a good person either. He continued, If you want to live a comfortable life, you can't pay the price of the divine realm cultivators' deaths. Don't forget that the land you're in belongs to the God realm. There were still many creatures of the divine world wandering aimlessly in the sky. Yishang glanced at them and said, I've never been an evil person. However, in order to prevent the other creatures of the divine world from becoming like this, I must force you to speak today. I won't say. No matter what, I will not reveal the location of the darkness origin. The Eternal Darkness King's attitude didn't change because of Yishang's words as he replied coldly. Unconsciously, it emitted a strong evil aura. This was the eruption of its nature. If you don't want to say it, fine. Night Sorrow heard Evernight King's voice transmission and said, This is a realm war. If you don't cooperate with me, there's only one outcome, complete destruction. Even if you don't say it, someone will. As he spoke, Night Sorrow used the Azure Rock soul-rending roar, preparing to directly kill Eternal Night King. Then he would look for other creatures of darkness. Now that it was a realm war, he wasn't going to show mercy. It's not that easy to kill my people of darkness. At this moment, the aura on Eternal Night King's body changed completely. From Divine Lord strength, it directly rose to the level of a middle-level Divine King. After his strength increased, he successfully blocked the Azure Rock soul-rending roar. Although I can't sense the other party's aura, I feel that Eternal Night King used a summoning technique to let the king of the creatures of darkness possess him. Fire Phoenix King in the Clear Sky Pagoda expressed her judgment and said, I heard about it when I was challenging the trial. This kind of summoning technique can't be done in an instant. He must have used this summoning technique after we separated for the first time. I know. Those who aren't of my race must have different intentions. Night Sorrow replied and then said, it's better to summon a king, he should know better. Cultivator of the God world, you want to find out the location of the darkness origin? Stop dreaming. With this king here, you won't be able to cause any trouble in my territory of darkness. The king-level dark creature was summoned by Eternal Night King. With a roar it attacked Night Sorrow. The way it attacked was similar to Eternal Night King. It directly dissipated its body in the void and completely merged with the darkness. This time, Night Sorrow didn't continue to use the Azure Rock soul-rending roar. Instead, he took out the Samsara halberd and shot out fiery demons subduing flames into the void. The entire sky was set ablaze with flames. It seemed that because the flames contained the aura of the ancestral phoenix, its power was especially great in the darkness. It directly burned the king-level dark creature out of the darkness. It's actually the aura of an invincible. The king-level dark creature, Dark Feather King, who was burned out of the void, was very afraid of the ancestral phoenix's aura. He, who had a huge body, immediately transformed into his human form. Although it was in the darkness, one could see that his appearance was similar to Night Sorrow's. He was imitating Night Sorrow's transformation. After transforming into Night Sorrow's appearance, it was much easier for Dark Feather King to avoid the flames. He was no longer troubled by the flames that contained the aura of the ancestral phoenix. However, after being burned by the flames, there was already a trace of the ancestral phoenix's aura on his body. Night Sorrow could sense this aura and determine his location. At this moment, Night Sorrow took out the Samsara halberd and shot the forbidden spear at Dark Feather King. This time, Dark Feather King didn't disappear into the night. Instead, he transformed into a divine weapon that looked like the Samsara halberd and fought head-on with Night Sorrow. Because he judged that he didn't have the ability to remove the aura of the ancestral phoenix, he chose to make a prompt decision. A divine weapon that he casually transformed is actually so powerful? Night Sorrow, who was fighting with Dark Feather King, realized that the Samsara halberd didn't destroy the divine weapon that the other party had transformed into. This meant that the divine weapon that the other party had casually transformed was at the level of a half-step sovereign. This was very strange. There are many methods that you don't understand. This king will definitely kill you today. Dark Feather King used the divine weapon in his hand to catch the forbidden spear. He shouted arrogantly and attacked Night Sorrow. The divine weapon that looked like the Samsara halberd immediately shot out an endless amount of dark energy. This kind of strength had surpassed the level of the divine king. It was vaguely at the level of a half-step sovereign. How can he be so strong? Facing Dark Feather King's attack, Night Sorrow used his movement technique to dodge, but he was chased by the dark energy. The dark energy that Dark Feather King shot out seemed to have a mind of its own as it chased after Night Sorrow non-stop. At this moment, Fire Phoenix King, who saw that Night Sorrow was in a passive position, reminded him, Night Sorrow. I remember now. Your current opponent is very likely the Dark Territory's king. The reason why he can erupt with such strength is because he can use the Dark Origin energy. The divine weapon in his hand is constructed from the Dark Origin energy. I see. I was wondering how a mid-level divine king could have such terrifying strength. In the process of escaping, Night Sorrow controlled the power of virtue to constantly purify the surrounding dark energy to relieve the pressure on his body. Chapter 2790. Power of Virtue. You are the Divine Lord of Virtue. You are the person chosen by the unrivaled warrior. Dark Feather King exclaimed when he saw Night Sorrow using the power of virtue to purify the origin of darkness. At the same time, he, who was standing quietly in the void, began to summon his real body. He did not dare to be careless when dealing with Night Sorrow, who had the power of virtue. While Dark Feather King was summoning his main body, Night Sorrow used the power of virtue to purify the surrounding dark energy. However, he could not stop Dark Feather King from summoning his main body. When Night Sorrow had completely purified the surrounding origin of darkness, Dark Feather King's main body had also successfully descended. After his main body descended, his aura immediately became much stronger. Although he was still at the level of the middle-level Divine King, his body seemed to be 3 to 4 times stronger. As for Eternal Night King, he had used his blood sacrifice to summon his main body. The person chosen by the unrivaled warrior. Let this king see your true strength. Dark Feather King's aura and divine domain had become much stronger. His every movement had a trace of majesty. As he spoke, he threw the dark Samsara halberd, which was formed by the power of origin towards Night Sorrow. This attack seemed simple, but it contained a strong destructive aura and a taboo taste. Very strong. But I still want to meet force with force. Facing Dark Feather King's attack, Night Sorrow could clearly feel the power of this attack. However, he did not retreat. After activating the Treastrimsa battle secret technique and increasing his strength, he merged the divine souls of the two deity seas and raised his strength to the peak. He then used the Dark Samsara halberd to attack with the Forbidden Reincarnation Spear. In terms of pure power, this spear technique was not as strong as the Forbidden Reincarnation Spear. However, it contained the Thunder attribute. After it was used, it naturally suppressed the dark energy. After the Dark Samsara halberd and the Dark Samsara halberd collided, there was a loud explosion. Night Sorrow, who was at a disadvantage in terms of strength, retreated 100 miles before stopping. Although he was at a disadvantage in this attack, he was very satisfied. He used the Dark Samsara halberd to attack with the Forbidden Reincarnation Spear again. This attack and the previous attack were both Forbidden Reincarnation Spear. However, the power was obviously different. Night Sorrow's comprehension had increased as he had merged the two deity seas halberd. He instantly discovered some flaws in this spear technique. Does the person chosen by the unrivaled warrior only have this method? Dark Feather King. Calm. Dark Feather King mocked. He Dark Feather King once again. With Dark Feather King. This strike was even stronger than the previous one. In his opinion, it would at least be able to heavily injure Yi Shan. According to Night Sorrow's judgment, after upgrading the Taboo Reincarnation Spear, there would be no problem resisting Dark Feather King's attacks. Battle Feather. The outcome this time was completely different from the previous time. Feather King. His protective divine domain had also been completely shattered, and he had sustained serious injuries. Dark Feather King was very surprised. He thought, why is the same move so much weaker when there is no change in divine origin force? You don't understand? There are many things that you don't understand. Night Sorrow's deity seas halberd had merged the two deity seas halberd. His deity seas halberd had more than doubled. The most important thing was that his comprehension ability, which was already at the peak, had increased even further. Combined with the Eye of the Sea Serpent, he could see through Dark Feather King's attack. He upgraded the Forbidden Reincarnation Spear and attacked again. Dark Feather King was furious when he saw Night Sorrow attack the Forbidden Reincarnation Spear for the third time. This time he used his strongest attack to fight against Night Sorrow. However, he was still at a disadvantage. He was seriously injured. No. He is getting stronger and stronger. This king needs to think of a way to deal with him. After Dark Feather King was at a disadvantage again, he reflected. He felt that this was not the way to go. Therefore he did not choose to fight head-on. Instead he hid in the void. Using the Darkness Origin Force, he used the Darkness Territory's strongest attack. Void Destruction Technique. When the Void Destruction Technique was used, Dark Feather King's figure reappeared in front of Night Sorrow. However, there were dozens of Dark Feather Kings. Why are they all real bodies? Night Sorrow, who used the Sea Serpent's Eye to observe, realized that the 33 Dark Feather Kings in the void were all real bodies. In the Divine Realm, only talented people could cultivate one or two doppelgangers. Now Dark Feather King actually had 32 doppelgangers. This was simply incomprehensible. What? It's your turn to be incomprehensible? Dark Feather King, who knew that Night Sorrow was very confused, sneered and used all his doppelgangers to attack. His real body held the Dark Samsara halberd and waited for the opportunity to attack Night Sorrow. There's no other way. I still have to use Tianyun Bao. Facing more than 30 doppelgangers of Dark Feather King, Night Sorrow had no choice but to take down the Tianyun Bao on his back. He continuously pulled the bowstring and shot at the numerous Dark Feather King figures in the void. Tianyun Bao was already severely damaged. Logically speaking, it should be repaired before using it. However, facing so many Dark Feather King's doppelgangers, he really had no other choice. Dominator Grade Divine Artifact? Dark Feather King was shocked when he saw Night Sorrow take out the Tianyun Bao and shoot at his doppelgangers. Although Night Sorrow had been carrying Tianyun Bao on his back, Tianyun Bao had concealed his aura and was not detected by Dark Feather King. Now that he discovered Tianyun Bao while Dark Feather King was shocked, he also became excited and had the thought of taking it for himself. After all, he had the help of the Darkness Origin Force and was much stronger than the ordinary Divine King. A Dominator Grade Divine Artifact is indeed useful. However, shooting it out of nowhere doesn't seem to have much effect on his doppelgangers. Night Sorrow, who had been pulling the Tianyun Bao non-stop, saw that the effect was not very good. He immediately turned his power of virtue into arrows and shot them out. This way the effect was immediate. 6 or 7 of Dark Feather King's doppelgangers were destroyed. Good move. A Dominator-grade divine artifact and power of virtue is indeed this king's nemesis. Unfortunately, your strength is still too weak. Dark Feather King, who had his doppelgangers destroyed by Night Sorrow, said coldly. Then he combined his doppelgangers into 5. Including the main body, there were a total of 6 doppelgangers in the void. After combining, these doppelgangers became much stronger. Under the pursuit of the arrow of virtue, they were able to handle it with ease. Seeing that Night Sorrow's arrow of virtue was no longer effective, Dark Feather King said murderously, "Since the Dominator-grade divine artifact can't help you, you should prepare to die." Prepare to die? Are you talking about yourself? Chapter 2791. Shameless Boasting. Dark Feather King did not believe Night Sorrow's words at all. He replied coldly and combined his doppelgangers again. He turned into a real body and led 3 doppelgangers to attack Night Sorrow. Dark Feather King's 3 doppelgangers and his real body had the same strength. They attacked Night Sorrow from above, below, left and right. You have overestimated yourself and underestimated the Dominator divine weapon. Dark Feather King and his 3 doppelgangers were equivalent to 4 middle-level divine kings attacking at the same time. If it was a normal Sir God, he would not be able to withstand it. However, Night Sorrow was very calm. He immediately injected his blood into the Tianyun Bao and activated it. Then, he turned the Samsara halberd into an arrow and shot it at Dark Feather King's real body with the power of merit. After shooting the arrow, Night Sorrow turned the power of merit into 5 arrows and shot the 5 elements merit arrow at one of the doppelgangers. At the same time, he used the Merit Dragon Lock spell on one of the doppelgangers and trapped it temporarily. Night Sorrow used the Green Rock Soul-Splitting Roar on the last doppelganger and pounced on Dark Feather King's real body. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. It was so fast that Dark Feather King found it unbelievable. Night Sorrow, who had temporarily merged the 2 doppelgangers, did not think much of it. Boom. When Night Sorrow pounced on Dark Feather King's real body, Dark Feather King's real body and the Samsara halberd were in a state of wrestling. When the 5 elements merit arrow was shot at one of the doppelgangers, it destroyed half of the doppelgangers and temporarily lost the ability to fight. At this moment, the doppelgangers that were trapped by the Merit Dragon Lock spell broke free and continued to attack Night Sorrow. The dark Samsara halberd that was originally in the real body's hands was now in the doppelganger's hands. The doppelgangers that were attacked by the Green Rock Soul-Splitting Roar were first shattered and then quickly reformed and continued to attack Night Sorrow. No. There's danger. Night Sorrow was originally attacking Dark Feather King's real body. However, he quickly realized that something was wrong. He used the Eye of the Sea Serpent Dragon to discover that Dark Feather King's real body had swapped with one of the doppelgangers. The one that was holding the dark Samsara halberd had become the real body. The one that was fighting the Samsara halberd had become a doppelganger. Death Slash. Just as Night Sorrow realized that something was wrong, Dark Feather King suddenly swung his dark Samsara halberd and launched a terrifying attack at Night Sorrow. When this attack erupted, all the energy within the darkness seemed to have been sucked out. The surrounding world, Dark Feather King's SS world. Not to mention ordinary people, the vast majority of cultivators were also in a state where they couldn't even see their fingers in front of them. The world turned pitch black. Even Yi Shang's Sea Serpent Dragon's eyes were blurry to a certain extent. At this time, Dark Feather King roared confidently, "Appearing in the dark territory is your biggest mistake. Here this king is invincible. In my opinion, you're not that invincible." Dark Feather King's attack came from nowhere, but Night Sorrow did not panic. He once again injected his blood into Tianyun Bao. He completely activated it. Tianyun Bao, who had been activated once again, immediately shone brightly, illuminating the surrounding world. Once the darkness disappeared, Dark Feather King's aura immediately weakened. In spite of this, his attack also slashed towards Yi Shan. The attack that could be hidden in the darkness could not be hidden at all after Tianyun Bao fully activated it. Night Sorrow easily used his movement technique to dodge it. However, just as he dodged Dark Feather King's attack, one of his doppelgangers had already charged over. Come. Let's see who's afraid. Facing Dark Feather King's doppelgangers, Night Sorrow did not retreat at all. He chose to fight it head-on. He and the doppelgangers were sent flying at the same time. However, Dark Feather King's doppelgangers were heavily injured, but Night Sorrow was not injured. This was because Night Sorrow had just used the Dominator artifact Tianyun Bao as a close combat divine artifact. After being smashed by Tianyun Bao, Dark Feather King's doppelgangers were similar to the one that was hit by the 5-elemental arrow. They instantly lost their ability to fight. Although Dark Feather King's doppelgangers' attacks were comparable to the real body, their bodies were obviously not as tough as the real body. They obviously could not withstand Tianyun Bao's attack. Virtuous 5-elemental arrow. After crippling Dark Feather King's doppelgangers once again, Night Sorrow did not feel complacent or stop. He immediately formed 5 virtuous arrows and aimed at the other doppelgangers. He then shot out the virtuous 5-elemental arrow. Under the illumination of Tianyun Bao's light, Dark Feather King and his doppelganger's strength decreased by varying degrees. Facing Night Sorrow's 5-elemental arrow, the doppelgangers that were locked in a stalemate with the heavenly Samsara halberd had no ability to resist. They were immediately destroyed. Dark Feather King's real body could only watch the arrows and sigh. I did not expect you, Sir God, to have so many tricks up your sleeves. Dark Feather King was furious that 2 of his doppelgangers were crippled and 1 of his doppelgangers was destroyed. Originally, in his opinion, this was a battle that he would win no matter how it developed. When the real battle begins, it depends on strength and tricks. Who cares if the opponent is a divine king or a Sir God? Night Sorrow, who replied to Dark Feather King, did not stop his attacks. He formed another virtuous arrow and shot the 5-elemental arrow at Dark Feather King's real body. Although your tricks are strong, this king has already seen through them. Dark Feather King was not nervous at all when facing the 5-elemental arrow. He waved the Dark Samsara halberd to block it. Night Sorrow had already shot the same virtuous 5-elemental arrow twice. Regardless of whether it was the trajectory or the energy it contained, Dark Feather King had seen through it. Therefore he did not feel much pressure when facing it. He used the Dark Samsara halberd to neutralize it. After neutralizing the virtuous 5-elemental arrow, Dark Feather King was in high spirits. After all, with the Divine King's strength, neutralizing the attack of a Dominator divine weapon was something to be proud of. You can't defeat this king even after using a Dominator divine weapon. Prepare to receive this king's strongest attack. Fused Darkness Origin. After neutralizing the 5-elemental arrow, Dark Feather King roared. Behind him a huge sphere appeared. This black sphere was emitting extremely evil darkness energy. Night Sorrow immediately determined that this was the Darkness Territory's origin. It contained extremely powerful darkness energy. After the Darkness Origin appeared, Dark Feather King immediately transformed into his real body and started to fuse with the Darkness Origin. I must not let him succeed in the fusion. Otherwise he would be able to kill you with just a wave of his hand. The Dominator divine weapon will also become his. Fire Phoenix King immediately warned when she saw Dark Feather King fusing with the Darkness Origin. She, who had gone through the trial, had some understanding of the fusion of origins. She knew that with Dark Feather King's strength, after fusing with the Darkness Origin, his strength would increase by leaps and bounds. The middle-ranked Divine King's Dark Feather King could even unleash a half-step Dominator attack. Chapter 2792. Don't worry. I will think of a way to solve this problem and not let him merge successfully. Even if Fire Phoenix King did not say it, Night Sorrow knew what it meant for Dark Feather King to merge with the Darkness Origin. But in reality, even if he was at his peak, he did not have the confidence to solve the crisis in front of him. Fire Phoenix King reminded him again, the strength of the Darkness Origin that he has merged with has exceeded our knowledge. If he dares to merge with the Darkness Origin in front of you, it means that even if you use Tianyun Bao to attack him, it might not have any effect. It's best to use a Divine Soul attack. If your Divine Soul attack is strong enough, it can interfere with him. Yes. If you use a Divine Soul attack, it might have an unexpected effect. Dragon Sparrow King, who had not spoken for a long time, also said. He also felt that a Divine Soul attack was the best way to solve the crisis in front of them. Well, that's a way. Night Sorrow received the two's reminder and suddenly had some ideas. After thinking for a while, he roared the Green Rock Soul-splitting roar at Dark Feather King, who had merged with the Darkness Origin. But it did not have any effect. He also used the Samsara halberd to attack the Divine Soul, but it did not have any effect either. Dark Feather King, who had fused with Darkness Origin, was still suspended in the void in a demonic manner. The darkness origin's power in the void, which was illuminated by Tianyun Bao, continued to flow into his body. With the influx of the energy, Dark Feather King's aura became stronger and stronger. If continuing to attack does not have any effect, the only way is to run away. Fire Phoenix King saw that Night Sorrow's attack did not have any effect and immediately became worried. They were now bound together for good or ill. If something happened to Night Sorrow, she would not have a good ending either. No. According to what they said, the realm of the gods must be in a dangerous situation. I have to destroy the darkness origin in front of me, Night Sorrow said as he unwillingly consumed a few pills. After recovering his divine origin force, he activated the 33 Heavens battle secret technique and used the merit power to form 5 merit arrows. He shot the merit arrows at Dark Feather King, who had merged with the darkness origin. But it still did not have any effect. As time passed, Dark Feather King, who had transformed into his original form, turned back into a man. He floated in the void, his long hair, and the darkness origin's power. The darkness origin's power even make Tianyun Bao's power. Dragon Sparrow King reminded Dark Feather King, Lord's Night Sorrow, you can set up a formation. No matter how strong he is, Dark Feather Kings, no matter how strong he is to you. The formation you speak of relies on the terrain and the power of the starlight. It's dark here and I can't borrow the power of starlight. King Long Ke, your reminder is very timely. After replying to the Dragon Sparrow King, Yi Shang immediately thought about what kind of formation he could set up here. Night Sorrow did not hesitate and set it up. Then he thought for a while and set up a formation that could absorb energy. He started to absorb the darkness origin's power. Although the absorption speed was much slower than Dark Feather King's, it could still absorb some of the darkness origin's power. Night Sorrow was prepared to detonate the formation after it absorbed a large amount of energy. This would deal a fatal blow to Dark Feather King. Dark Feather King was absorbing the darkness origin's power and posed a great threat. However, his biggest weakness was that he could not move. Although his defense was amazing and even Tianyun Bao's 5 elemental arrow could not pose a threat, Night Sorrow could use it as he wished. What kind of formation is this? Can it be stacked and set up a few more? Dragon Sparrow King, who was in the Clear Heaven Pagoda, saw Night Sorrow set up a formation that could absorb the darkness origin's power and immediately asked. Of course not. If I could, I would have set up 10 or 20 of them. Night Sorrow replied speechlessly to Dragon Sparrow King's question. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Dragon Sparrow King did not speak. Fire Phoenix King spoke first. This won't do. It won't affect him much. If this goes on, he will still succeed. We will all die. In this kind of environment, the formation I can set up is only this much. Night Sorrow replied helplessly. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind and he said, I seem to have thought of a way. He thought of the method to absorb the darkness origin energy and control the souls of the dark creatures in the endless bone realm. Without any hesitation, he immediately absorbed the darkness origin's darkness origin. Night Sorrow, what are you doing? We cultivators of the divine realm will suffer a backlash if we absorb this kind of darkness origin energy. We will completely become slaves of the darkness. Seeing that Night Sorrow was actually absorbing the darkness origin energy, Fire Phoenix King, who had some understanding of this kind of energy, immediately advised. She felt that Night Sorrow's response was not a good idea. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. This is the best way. After replying, Night Sorrow continued to absorb the darkness origin energy. After absorbing almost all of it, he immediately used the fused souls to control Dark Feather King, who had fused with the darkness origin energy. Although the darkness origin energy gave Dark Feather King an extremely strong defense, it could not stop Night Sorrow from using mind control on him. You can actually use this kind of method. He did not expect Night Sorrow, a virtuous divine lord, to be able to use such a dark method. Dark Feather King, who did not care about Night Sorrow's attack, immediately realized that something was wrong and used his soul to resist. His originally tightly shut eyes abruptly opened, revealing a pair of black hole-like eyes. It looked extremely evil. The moment he opened his eyes, 2 black beams of light shot towards Night Sorrow's body. Your attack is useless. Night Sorrow, who was competing with Dark Feather King, knew that Dark Feather King's attack contained the darkness origin energy. However, he did not take it to heart. As he was attacked by the darkness origin energy, Tianyun Bao released a shocking amount of energy at the crucial moment and blocked the attack. Your mind control attack is also useless against this king. After confirming that the darkness origin energy did not pose a threat to Night Sorrow's body, Dark Feather King replied confidently. In his opinion, although Night Sorrow was talented, he was still a divine lord. His soul was not as strong as his. Chapter 2793. Not only was Night Sorrow's divine soul powerful, but it was also ridiculously powerful. Relatively speaking, it was even more terrifying than his strength. After resisting for a while, Dark Feather King thoroughly realized that things were not good. Although he was absorbing the darkness source power non-stop and his strength kept increasing, his divine soul strength did not increase by much. Facing the divine soul strength of Night Sorrow, he gradually showed signs of being unable to resist. At this time he already did not dare to divide his divine soul to absorb the darkness source power anymore and focused on resisting Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow indeed has a way worthy of being the challenger designated by Lord Ancestor Phoenix. Seeing that Night Sorrow actually forced Dark Feather King to stop absorbing the darkness source power in the vast heaven pagoda, he was immediately roused. Regarding this, Dragon Sparrow King smiled without finding it strange and said, "I said before, his means are astonishing. Anything he does is not surprising. If I were you after today, I'd directly seek refuge with him. In the future, his accomplishments are limitless. If we follow behind him, we might have the chance to break through to Sovereign Realm." Compared to Fire Phoenix King, Dragon Sparrow King had more contact with Night Sorrow and trusted him more. "For now I'll believe what you said. But I, Fire Phoenix King, don't want to submit to others." Although he felt that what Dragon Sparrow King said made sense, when it really needed to be humiliated, Fire Phoenix King still chose to refuse. People all said that dragons and phoenixes had aspirations. Fire Phoenix King, as the phoenix race, had his own pride. Don't want to submit to others, then forget it. Regarding Fire Phoenix King's choice, Dragon Sparrow King actually understood, but he did not appreciate it. In his view, a wise man submits to circumstances. During the process of the two people's brief conversation, Night Sorrow and Dark Feather King's divine soul confrontation already progressed to a white-hot stage. Dark Feather King, who was originally incomparably confident in his own divine soul, somewhat panicked after discovering that Night Sorrow's divine soul was stronger than his. Under the situation where he was virtually completely suppressed, he started to beg the darkness source for help. Dark Feather King was willing to be controlled by the darkness source will and was not willing to be controlled by Night Sorrow's mind. At the end of the battle, Dark Feather King's soul had already been destroyed, and his control was completely taken over by the Dark Origin. This was an incomparably evil will. After it took over Dark Feather King's soul, it immediately fought against Night Sorrow and took the initiative. "Little Divine Lord Realm Cultivator, all that awaits you is complete destruction. The power of the origin source is not something you can resist." While fighting against Night Sorrow, the darkness origin will was also constantly interfering. "You reminded me. I also have the power of the origin." The darkness origin will's words reminded Night Sorrow of the rewards bestowed by the God World's origin. Although the origin energy of the God Realm was not particularly powerful, the origin energy that it contained was extremely pure. After using the God World's origin energy, Night Sorrow was immediately strengthened. The will of the darkness origin, which he had originally felt impossible to resist, was now gradually becoming something that he could barely resist. This was due to the fact that Night Sorrow's divine soul was a fusion of two separate divine seas. It was even more powerful than the average divine king. After all, even the middle-level divine king, Dark Feather King, had a divine soul that was weaker than him. "It's useless. There's a saying that goes, when the Tao is 1 foot tall, the devil is 10 feet tall. Even if you can use the power of the origin, you're still not my match." After Night Sorrow used the God World's origin power, the darkness origin will immediately became even stronger. It took the initiative again. Not good. Night Sorrow seems to be in trouble. In the vast heaven pagoda, Fire Phoenix King, who was talking to Dragon Sparrow King, immediately realized that something was wrong. But she was in the spatial artifact and could not get out at all. She could only be anxious. Look at Dark Feather King's aura. It became so evil in an instant as if he became a different person. Dragon Sparrow King, who had been carefully observing, also saw that something was wrong. He immediately communicated with Shao Kong and said, "Vast Heaven Pagoda's artifact spirit, do you have any way to help Lord Night Sorrow? His situation is not too good." I don't have the ability to participate in this battle. However, I can activate the array formation that has been set up. At the same time that Shao Kong responded to Dragon Sparrow King, it directly activated the array formation that Night Sorrow had set up. After the array formation was activated, it immediately began to weaken the Darkness Origin power. Before being suppressed by the array formation, the Darkness Origin power was roughly equivalent to a half-step Sovereign strength. After being weakened by the array formation, it was almost reduced to the level of a high-level Divine King. The Darkness Origin power was also weakened a lot because of this. Night Sorrow felt that the pressure on him had decreased a lot. Damn array formation. After being suppressed by the array formation, the Darkness Origin power was immediately enraged. The evil it wanted to destroy the array formation at the first moment. It split off some of its will to control the origin power and launch a barrage of attacks on the array formation. Moreover, it split off a trace of its will to control the origin power and launch an attack on the Vast Heaven Pagoda. Seeing that the Vast Heaven Pagoda was being attacked, the Fire Phoenix King and Dragon Sparrow King's eyes widened. However, just as the Darkness Origin power approached, Tianyun Bao shook again and directly blasted the Darkness Origin power away. But the light of Tianyun Bao, who released another attack, started to weaken at a speed visible to the naked eye. If Lord Night Sorrow can't win quickly, things will be dangerous. The Sovereign Divine Artifact Tianyun Bao seems to have already exhausted all of its energy. Although the Dragon Sparrow King inside the Vast Heaven Pagoda was glad that he was saved by the Vast Heaven Pagoda, he was clearly aware that Tianyun Bao was already close to the state of a lamp running out of oil. He could only place his hopes on Night Sorrow. The Fire Phoenix King beside him was similarly so, extremely anxious. At this time, the Fire Phoenix King, who thought for a moment, suddenly opened her mouth and said, "Dragon Sparrow King, do you think that if the Vast Heaven Pagoda is shattered, can we go out and fight?" The feeling of being completely unable to exert strength made the Fire Phoenix King very conflicted. What you said seems to make some sense. However, I feel that since Lord Ancestor Phoenix set the rules, there shouldn't be any loopholes left. Not being able to use spatial artifacts is because His Excellency wants to test the challenger and doesn't wish for him to receive any help. If we take advantage of the loophole to attack, it's very likely that we'll touch the rules taboo. The Dragon Sparrow King, who thought for a while, similarly had some thoughts in his heart. He felt that if the Darkness Source power blasted towards the Vast Heaven Pagoda again, then the Vast Heaven Pagoda would very likely be directly shattered. He and the Fire Phoenix King might be able to extricate themselves and fight side by side with Night Sorrow. But he was somewhat worried that this would anger the Ancestor Phoenix Supreme who set the rules. "Why are you guys like this?" Little Sky, who heard the conversation between the Fire Phoenix King and the Dragon Sparrow King, immediately trembled in fear. If the Vast Heaven Pagoda was shattered, its outcome as an artifact spirit would definitely be extremely tragic. Right at this time, the location where the Dark Feather King and the Darkness Source were, the energy suddenly started to fluctuate violently. Very clearly, this was the Darkness Source will brewing an attack again, preparing to launch an attack towards the Vast Heaven Pagoda again. The Darkness Source will was the same as the Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King. Similarly, seeing that Tianyun Bao's energy was already basically exhausted, it wanted to directly destroy the Vast Heaven Pagoda. Chapter 2794. The two of them discovered that the Darkness Source power brewed by the Darkness Source was already half-step sovereign level. If this kind of attack was released, regardless of whether it was Night Sorrow's body, the Vast Heaven Pagoda, or them, they might all be directly insta-killed. The only thing present that could survive was probably only Tianyun Bao, this sovereign divine artifact. Very clearly, the Darkness Source power's attack just now was just a simple probing. At this very moment, it was preparing to erupt with its strongest attack. The goal was not just to destroy the Vast Heaven Pagoda. Most importantly, it wanted to directly destroy Night Sorrow's body. What to do? What should we do? Even under these circumstances, Night Sorrow was still fighting against the will of darkness. The Fire Phoenix King inside the Vast Heaven Pagoda was anxious like an ant on a hot pan, already panicking to a certain extent. And at this time, the Darkness Source power was still continuing to condense, becoming stronger and stronger. What can we do? We can only pin our hopes on Lord Night Sorrow. The Dragon Sparrow King, who was at his wits' end inside the Vast Heaven Pagoda, sighed helplessly. The Darkness Source power in the middle of condensing was raised to the limit at this moment and could not be raised anymore. We'll definitely be obliterated by this attack. Seeing the darkness source power completely condense, the Fire Phoenix King's constricted pupils gradually calmed down. She opened her mouth and said, "Anyway, if we fail, we can still return to the small world. At most, we'll die again. I feel that things are not that simple. Perhaps being killed this time will perish forever." Dragon Sparrow King's heart, a strong foreboding premonition rose up. At the same time, the darkness source power that finished condensing attacked toward Night Sorrow's body and the vast heaven pagoda mercilessly. The Fire Phoenix King and Dragon Sparrow King immediately fell into despair. The situation was already as critical as a hair's breadth. "It's fine. No need to panic." Just as the Fire Phoenix King and Dragon Sparrow King were already in despair, Night Sorrow suddenly transmitted his voice over. Dragon Sparrow King immediately asked agitatedly, "Lord Night Sorrow, you've already successfully controlled the other party's mind?" "That's not it. But I didn't use all of my divine soul power. My body won't become a complete target." After replying, Night Sorrow used some of the power of his divine soul that he hadn't used. He held the Tianyun Bao in his hand and used the dragon steps in the profound sky to hide. The darkness origin originally thought that Night Sorrow's body wouldn't be able to move, so its attack was very simple. It was a pure condensation of extremely powerful energy, yet it was easily dodged. Oh. Night Sorrow successfully dodged the attack with the clear sky pagoda. The Dragon Sparrow King immediately let out a long sigh of relief. However, the attack of the darkness source power was very powerful, directly piercing through the array formation that Night Sorrow set up, reducing the power of the array formation by quite a bit. The suppression on the darkness origin was also much smaller than before. At this time, the darkness source will gathered all of its will, preparing to launch the final confrontation with Night Sorrow. But what it didn't expect was that Night Sorrow didn't withdraw. The part of his divine soul that he left behind controlled the body and used the Samsara halberd to pierce Dark Feather King's Dantian. With his Dantian broken, Dark Feather King's body was almost crippled. Even if the darkness source will controlled it, it wouldn't be of much use. Seeing that Night Sorrow had broken Dark Feather King's Dantian, the darkness source will immediately withdrew from Dark Feather King's body. It took the opportunity to attach itself to Night Sorrow's body, wanting to seize control of his body. "Want to seize my body? You've made the worst choice." Night Sorrow, who had already controlled Dark Feather King's body, saw that the darkness source was about to seize control of his body. He immediately left Dark Feather King's deity C and returned to his body to fight it. In the previous confrontation, the darkness source had the upper hand. However, Night Sorrow's body had a large amount of merit power. After being at a disadvantage, Night Sorrow immediately used his merit power to purify the darkness source will. After being purified by the merit power, the darkness source immediately weakened. Seeing that the situation wasn't right, it wanted to leave Night Sorrow's body. But how could Night Sorrow let it leave? He used his merit power to bind it and purify it bit by bit. After the darkness source was completely purified, the darkness source will become a body of energy with no consciousness. The surrounding world began to change from a pitch-black world to a bright one. After using Tianyun Bao to destroy the darkness source Night Sorrow obtained a sparkling black ball. Although this black ball emitted a black aura, it wasn't evil at all. Instead, it contained a trace of dominating aura. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow threw it into Tianyun Bao to repair Tianyun Bao's injuries. After using Tianyun Bao to absorb the black ball, Tianyun Bao recovered a lot and was in a better state than before the battle. Night Sorrow was very happy about this. He sent a voice transmission to Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King. "Now that the darkness source has been broken, the Divine King of the Dark Territory has probably fallen to the Divine Lord level and is no longer a threat. Tianyun Bao has recovered more than half. We still have 6 territories to explore. As long as we destroy the origins of these 6 territories, the crisis of the Divine World's territory will be resolved." "That's right," Dragon Sparrow King replied and asked, "Then should we go to other territories or the Divine World's territory to check on the battle situation?" "Let's go to the Divine World's territory to check on the battle situation first. If the Divine World's territory has the ability to hold on for a period of time, we'll go to other territories and think of ways to destroy their origins. If the Divine World's territory can't be defended, then the matter will be difficult to solve." After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow said and carried the Samsara halberd and Tianyun Bao on his back and flew in the direction of the Divine World's territory. During the flight, Night Sorrow realized that after the surroundings became bright, Some of the birds and beasts that had lost their intelligence began to wake up. He was very gratified. However, although they were getting closer and closer to the divine world's territory, Night Sorrow's mood began to become heavier and heavier. Today there was only one big city left in the divine world's territory that was not occupied by the evil creatures of the 7 territories. The reason why it was not occupied by the 7 territories was because this big city and its circumference of 1,000,000 miles was enveloped by an extremely tyrannical array. When Night Sorrow found the vicinity, the evil creatures were using all kinds of methods to break the array. Although the array in front of them was of a high grade, it was not a Dominator-level array. It was only a matter of time before it was broken. Seeing the situation in front of her, Fire Phoenix King said, "Although the divine world's territory is in danger, it seems to be very safe for now. We can go to other territories to destroy their origins in peace." No, things are not that simple. Chapter 2795. Things aren't that simple? Lord Night Sorrow, what do you mean? Dragon Sparrow King, who was in the Clear Sky Pagoda, immediately frowned and asked after hearing Night Sorrow's words. He was the same as Fire Phoenix King, unable to leave the Clear Sky Pagoda. His perception of the outside world was much weaker. Some things could not be seen at all. Is the array protecting the Divine Realm cities about to be broken? Fire Phoenix King asked worriedly. Night Sorrow carefully observed his surroundings. Seeing that there was nothing unusual around him, he transmitted his voice to the 2. If I'm not wrong, the people of the 7 territories are setting up the heaven and earth killing array. If they succeed in activating it, the city's defensive array will definitely be broken. The array they set up is borrowing the power of heaven and earth. It's better than the city's defensive array. What? Heaven and earth killing array? Hearing this name, Fire Phoenix King was stunned. Then she said, "I heard that setting up this array requires a lot of materials. I wonder how they are going to activate it. They probably don't have enough materials and want to use the origins of the 7 territories to make up for it. Therefore it can't be considered a real heaven and earth killing array. However, I feel that the power won't be much weaker." Night Sorrow said. He had comprehended the heaven and earth killing array in the heaven and earth array diagram. Compared to the array set up by the 7 territories, it was much better. However, the 7 territories had 7 great origins. Of course, at present there were already 6 great origins. At this time, the darkness origin had already been absorbed by Tianyun Bao. The strength of the Dark Territory's Divine King and Divine Lord had already decreased. However, they did not make any noise in their own territories. After all, if the people of the other territories knew that the Dark Territory had even lost its origins, they might directly devour them. In that case, the Dark Territory would directly disappear. Now that the darkness origin has been absorbed by Tianyun Bao, can they still successfully activate the heaven and earth killing array? Fire Phoenix King asked doubtfully. After hearing Night Sorrow's words, she also felt that things were a bit difficult. After all, excluding the Dark Territory, the other 6 territories had at least 15 Divine Kings. The number of Divine Kings in the Divine Realm should not be more than 5. According to my judgment, it can definitely be activated, but it's hard to say how powerful it will be. However, if we can destroy 2 or 3 more origins, their great formation should not be able to be activated. Night Sorrow voiced his opinion. At that moment he suddenly stopped his voice transmission. This was because he discovered that not far away, there were 2 extremely ugly Divine Lords in human form. They were slowly flying through the void. Cao Linger, who had just walked out from her cultivation, saw the faces of these 2 Divine Lords, and was so frightened that she suddenly cried out in the vast heaven pagoda. Regardless of whether it was the Scarlet Territory, the Soul Slaughter Territory, the 10,000 Miasma Territory, the Yin Demon Territory, the 1,000 Wasps Territory, or the Poison Heart Territory. Compared to the cultivators of the Celestial Realm, most of the living beings in the Celestial Realm had ferocious appearances. Even if they were to transform into human form, they would still retain some of their original characteristics. Don't brag. Lord Night Sorrow is currently deep in the enemy's territory. If he were to be discovered, it would be a one-on-one fight against 7 territories. He would definitely not be a match for them. As soon as Cao Linger cried out, Long K King made a gesture to her to keep quiet. At that moment, the Divine King-level figures of the 7 territories were all paying attention to the great formation protecting the Celestial Realm cities. No one would have thought that there would be people from the Celestial Realm appearing outside the cities. Therefore, the defenses and alertness of each territory were relatively low. Therefore, Night Sorrow could easily sneak into the hinterland of such a place. If he were to be discovered in the center of such a battle zone, he would definitely be surrounded. Long K King was worried that the sound in the vast heaven pagoda would be transmitted to the outside world. It's okay. If it weren't for Little Kong's special control, the people outside would not be able to hear the sound inside. Night Sorrow and the others walked far away and said. Then, he continued, what we need to do now is to quickly find the origins of 2 or 3 territories and destroy them. It's easier said than done to find the location of the origins. After all, the origins have their own will. Long K King heard Night Sorrow's words and immediately felt a little dejected. He felt that it was too difficult to complete this task. First of all, it was difficult to determine the location of the origins. Secondly, if they were to make a move and cause a big commotion, it would definitely alarm the people of the other territories. In that case, Night Sorrow would definitely face the situation of being surrounded and annihilated. Difficult doesn't mean that there is no way. I can feel that the 7 territories in front of us are using less than 1% of their origins in the formation. It seems that they are testing the power of the Celestial Realm's formation. If the remaining 6 origins are not in the formation's location, we will have a great chance. At first, Night Sorrow thought that the origins of the other 6 territories were already present. However, after carefully observing with the eye of the sea serpent, he realized that he could not be sure whether they were there or not. At that moment, Cao Linger, who was trembling in fear, suddenly sent a voice transmission. Brother Night Sorrow, the origins you are talking about, are they the ones that we encountered in the battle just now? Yes. As long as 2 or 3 of them are destroyed, the threat facing the Celestial Realm will be reduced by a lot. Night Sorrow sent a voice transmission to Cao Linger. Then Linger can go out and help Brother Night Sorrow to sense their location. Cao Linger continued to send a voice transmission. She was very happy when she thought of what she could do for Night Sorrow. Long K King and Fire Phoenix King, who heard this, shook their heads one after another. The 2 of them did not speak. Night Sorrow said with a smile, Linger, in the current situation, Brother Night Sorrow is unable to release you. Otherwise, your Brother K King and Sister Fire Phoenix would have come out to fight with Brother Night Sorrow. I'm sorry, Brother Night Sorrow. Linger forgot about this. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Cao Linger immediately blushed. She thought for a while with a red face and said, Brother Night Sorrow, actually, I don't need to go out. You can also hunt them down. What method do you need to use to hunt down the origins of several large territories? Night Sorrow asked curiously. I can teach Brother Night Sorrow a secret technique to track aura. The aura in front of you can help Brother Night Sorrow to track down the location of the territory's origins. Cao Linger said. She continued, however, this is the Horn Race's secret technique. After Brother Night Sorrow obtains it, you can't teach it to others. Since it's the Horn Race's secret technique, Brother Night Sorrow shouldn't learn it. Just study other methods. Night Sorrow immediately refused when he heard that Cao Linger wanted to teach him the Horn Race's secret technique. If he learned the secret method of the Horn Clan from a little girl, he would feel bad. Brother Night Sorrow, our entire Horn Race tribe was saved by you. Furthermore, you have karma with our ancestors. Learning the Horn Race's secret technique is nothing. You should learn it. Chapter 2796. At this time, Night Sorrow was still in the state of fusion of 2 divine souls. His comprehension was extremely terrifying. Cao Linger had just transmitted the secret technique's incantation to him, and he naturally comprehended it. In an instant he comprehended the secret technique. Night Sorrow sighed slightly and said, Since we're here, let's take things as they come. Just take good care of the Horn tribe in the future. However, at the same time he separated his 2 divine souls and let them return to the first and second divine seas respectively. He was still not used to the feeling of 2 divine souls fusing together. Then he said to Cao Linger, Linger, thank you for this matter, but don't do it again. Linger knows. Brother Night Sorrow, you have to do your best. Cao Linger smiled sweetly. She understood that Night Sorrow had already learned the secret technique. Brother Night Sorrow, I won't let Linger down. After replying to Cao Linger, Night Sorrow began to use the secret technique to track down the source of the bloody territory. After following the bloody aura for a while, Night Sorrow gradually left the vicinity of the Divine World cities and entered the real bloody territory. The first source that I'm looking for is not near the Divine World cities. This is a very good opportunity. After confirming that the bloody source was in the depths of the bloody territory, the difficulty of the matter was greatly reduced. Night Sorrow felt very fortunate. It's a good opportunity, however you still need to be careful. Who knows, you might encounter several Divine King. Dragon Sparrow King also felt fortunate, but he did not forget to remind him. If you solve it fast enough, you won't encounter many Divine King. Because many Divine King are around the Divine World's territories. While Night Sorrow was tracking the bloody source, he was very careful in the bloody territory. He encountered some creatures that originally belonged to the Divine World. Whether they were human cultivators or other cultivators, they had all been corroded by the bloody color and turned into mindless bloody puppets. These tragic scenes reminded Night Sorrow of the Eternal Supreme World. If it weren't for the Supremes of the Eternal Supreme Realm, he and most of the cultivators of the God Realm would have been reduced to such a mindless existence. This must be the sorrowful aura that primordial phoenix ancestor wants me to feel. As Yi Shang continued to move toward the location of the blood origin, he felt something and comprehended many things. Just like that, he took about 3 days to bring everyone in the Great Sky Pagoda to the Bloody Territory's base camp. It was a blood-red palace. The palace towered into the clouds and was completely made of bones. Due to the effects of the spirit design, there was blood flowing on the surface of the bones. It looked extremely evil. Outside the palace, thousands of blood feather gods and high gods were patrolling. These blood-colored creatures were all in human form, but they did not have faces at all. They gave off a very bad feeling. Some of them would turn into a pool of blood after walking for a while, and then stand up again. There are too many patrolling. If we rush in rashly, I'm afraid we'll alert the enemy. Seeing countless blood-colored soldiers patrolling around the palace, Dragon Sparrow King immediately frowned in the Great Sky Pagoda. At this time Night Sorrow said, "They won't be a threat to me at all. The dangerous thing is the spirit design in the vicinity." As he spoke, Night Sorrow took a step forward and walked toward the blood-colored palace. He walked between the feather gods and high gods. These blood-colored soldiers did not even look at him. This made Dragon Sparrow King very surprised. He asked curiously, "Lord Night Sorrow, how did you do it? Even if there's a concealment spirit design on your body, it shouldn't be impossible for them to discover you at such a close distance. This is called the law of the land. As long as I open my mouth, cultivators who are lower than me will not pose any threat to me." As Night Sorrow explained, he stepped into the blood-colored palace. Because the sea serpents I could see through the surrounding spirit design, he was not discovered by the blood-colored soldiers and did not trigger any spirit design. Amazing. This ability is too exaggerated. Doesn't this mean that if you cultivate to the ruler level, no matter how many divine kings the other rulers send to surround and kill you, it won't be of any use? Hearing Night Sorrow's description, Shio and Fire Phoenix King were surprised. After all, in the God Realm, some rulers were still worried about being targeted by some powerful divine kings. After all, the ruler's origin was a necessity for a divine king to advance to the ruler level. However, if Night Sorrow advanced to the ruler level, he would not have to worry about these problems at all. This was because he did not need to make a move at all. He could just open his mouth and say a few words to kill the other party. Seeing Fire Phoenix King's envious expression, Dragon Sparrow King smiled and said, "The challenger chosen by the Ancestor Phoenix is naturally not simple." Fire Phoenix King was still immersed in her reverie and only responded softly. At this time, Night Sorrow's expression gradually became serious. After entering the blood-colored palace, he followed the aura of the blood-colored spirit design and kept searching. Finally, he tracked it to a blood-colored mountain peak. At this time, there were some blood tribe creatures slaughtering some high gods and divine lords of the God Realm. In just a few breaths of time, more than 20 high gods of the God Realm had their heads chopped off. Only 3 divine lords and 6 or 7 high gods were left. Their faces were all filled with hatred and unwillingness. Blood spurted out from the neck of those who had their heads chopped off, dyeing the rocks on the mountain peak red and emitting a strong smell of blood. However, this smell of blood was quickly absorbed by an invisible force. Only the surface of the rocks was left. The blood that had lost its vitality gradually turned from red to dark red. It's the blood-colored spirit design. It's absorbing the smell of blood. Night Sorrow sized up and confirmed that there were only 4 blood tribe divine lords and a few hundred high gods on the mountain peak. He immediately released his aura and flew toward the mountain peak. Destroying the blood-colored spirit design was the goal of this trip, but it was rare to meet God Realm cultivators in the blood-colored territory. He did not hesitate to choose to rescue them at the first opportunity. Divine Lord? Which divine king's divine monarch are you? Why have you barged into this place alone? Run quickly. This is the habitat of the blood-colored spirit design. Without the divine king's strength, you won't be able to return. One of the divine lords bound by the blood-colored chains noticed that the saber that was about to cut his neck had been blocked by Yi Shang before he was decapitated. While he rejoiced, he immediately shouted a warning. Since we have met its fate, I will do my best to save you. Night Sorrow did not pay attention to the divine lord's warning. After all, his real goal was to destroy the blood-colored spirit design. It was inevitable that he would encounter a divine lord or the divine king. Save what? Run quickly. Leave before the blood-colored spirit design is alerted. The other Sir God, who was bound, roared as his expression changed. Chapter 2797. Kill the Intruder. A god lord from the Scarlet Territory immediately issued a kill order after discovering Yi Shang's figure. His name was Shueisha and he was the leader of these people. At the same time, Shueisha sent a message to the divine king of the Bloody Territory. From his point of view, informing a godly king was enough to deal with a godly lord like Yi Shang. Run. Shueisha must have informed the divine king. It won't be long before the divine king of the Bloody Territory arrives. Combined with the blood origin source, you will definitely die. Divine Lord Wuxia, who was bound, shouted angrily. In his opinion, Night Sorrow was walking into a trap and would die for no reason. No worries. Even if the divine king arrives, I'll save all of you. Night Sorrow did not arrogantly say it out loud. Instead, he sent a message to everyone in the divine world, hoping that they would feel at ease. However, these people did not believe that he could fight the divine king and the Origin's will. They all advised him to escape immediately. Kill. At the same time, the Sir Gods and many high gods of the Bloody Territory surrounded Night Sorrow. After Shueisha spoke, a few more Sir Gods appeared at the peak of the mountain. In addition to the previous few, the number of Sir Gods in the Bloody Territory had reached 10. The restrained people of the divine world all sighed. After all, in the eyes of ordinary people, it was almost impossible for one to fight against 10 cultivators of the same level. The 10 Sir Gods of the Bloody Territory looked like they were made of blood. When they attacked Night Sorrow, they all turned into water droplets and hid in the void. The most peculiar thing was that when the 10 of them attacked, they formed a complete group. They turned into giants and attacked Night Sorrow fiercely. They were at the same cultivation level as Night Sorrow, so their words were ineffective. However, Night Sorrow used his words to suppress all the high gods present and combine them to attack the 10 Sir Gods. Forbidden Reincarnation Spear. Night Sorrow took out his reincarnation heavenly halberd and threw out the forbidden reincarnation spear. This move had been improved several times and was close to perfection. As for the Samsara heavenly halberd, it was already at the half-step ruler level. It had a great advantage against divine lords. After the forbidden reincarnation spear was thrown out, it even had the intention of shaking the bloody mountain. The 10 blood monarchs were immediately disintegrated by the bombardment. The attack they had just launched did not even touch the corner of Night Sorrow's clothes. This kind of strength is already on par with the Divine King, right? Seeing Night Sorrow unleash such a powerful attack, God Monarch Wuxia of the God Realm immediately praised. He wasn't the only one. The other high gods and monarchs of the God Realm were also staring at the scene with wide eyes. He should be as strong as the Divine King. A divine monarch against a divine king, this was a genius that had never appeared in the divine realm before. Maybe he has the ability to save us. Zhong Lingxiao, another god monarch, was also encouraged by Night Sorrow's attack. The enemy in front of us is obviously stronger than us. Quick, activate the blood formation. Shueisha, the leader of the god monarchs, saw Night Sorrow's attack and divine weapon and immediately understood that he was an existence that no god monarch could resist. He ordered his subordinates to activate the blood formation. However, the blood monarchs were all under Night Sorrow's control. They grouped together and attacked another blood monarch. These blood-colored gods were weak individually, but there were too many of them. When they worked together, their attack power was enough to strike fear into the hearts of the blood-colored sovereigns. Bastard! What kind of move is this? Shueisha, who had given the order, saw that the blood monarchs were out of control and listened to Night Sorrow. He immediately disappeared into the void and chose to activate the blood formation himself. The blood formation? Night Sorrow wanted to stop Shueisha from activating the formation, but he was besieged by the other god monarchs. In terms of strength, these god monarchs were worlds apart from Night Sorrow, but their moves were very special. Not only could they fuse together, but they could also scatter and seep into the soil. When they suddenly exerted their strength, they had already turned into thousands of god monarchs. What a strange move. While Night Sorrow resisted, he opened the eye of the sea serpent to observe the enemy's position and changes. Because the blood monarchs had special moves, he did not have time to stop Shueisha from activating his movement technique. Moreover, he had completely risen from the ground into the void. Boom. Boom. Night Sorrow rose into the void and broke the blood monarch's attacks again and again. Suddenly, thunder began to rumble in the void. Be careful of the blood rain. This formation contains the aura of the blood origin. Even the Divine King might not be able to last long in this formation. Seeing that Night Sorrow did not stop the formation from activating, Zhong Lingxiao immediately shouted worriedly. These god monarchs of the divine world are really scared out of their wits by the people of the blood territory. It wasn't like this when I was training. Seeing Zhong Lingxiao's reaction, Long Ke King, who was in the clear sky pagoda, could not help but let out a sigh. They didn't do anything wrong. The god monarchs of the divine world might not have high standards, so Long Ke King's words were a little angry. However, Night Sorrow did not feel that there was anything wrong with it. At the very least, they knew how to worry about their companions. This proved that their minds had not been corrupted by the blood territory. If he rescued them, he would obtain a lot of useful information. At this moment, the void that was originally filled with thunder and lightning suddenly became quiet. Then, several incomparably beautiful blood clouds floated over. These blood clouds had a very strong evil aura. When it floated above Yichang, a dense rain of blood immediately fell. Many of the god monarchs of the blood territory, including Shueisha, merged into the blood rain. Following the blood rain, they attacked Night Sorrow. Why do I feel that your blood territory should change its name to Bloodwater Territory? Night Sorrow raised his head and looked up at the void. Until now he had not used his full strength. Facing the blood rain that poured down, he looked at the people of the divine world who were bound. He judged that if the blood rain poured down like this, the god monarchs and high gods of the divine world would definitely encounter a great disaster. Therefore Night Sorrow struck the void with raging flames, demon subduing. The flames that suddenly appeared purified the blood water in the sky. Then he roared out the green rock soul-splitting roar into the void, shaking all the god monarchs of the blood territory out of the void. Although Night Sorrow had not even activated the Trayastrimsa battle mystic technique, he had completely taken the initiative. Very good. Although you are a god monarchs, you have the strength of the Divine King. The Divine King likes to devour cultivators with tricks like you. When Night Sorrow suppressed all the god monarchs of the blood territory, a sudden roar came from the void. Clearly, the Divine King of the blood territory had arrived. The Divine King has arrived? I wonder how many there are. Fighting against the god monarchs, Night Sorrow did not even sweat. He easily held the initiative and protected everyone in the divine world. Chapter 2798. Blood Clan Sky Swallowing Technique. Night Sorrow was full of fighting spirit, while the Divine King from the Bloody Territory was obviously more irritable. He had just sized up Night Sorrow for a while before he used his ultimate technique. He was originally in human form, but after using the Blood Clan Sky Swallowing Technique, he immediately turned into a blurry blood-red color. After the blood-red color appeared, it immediately spread above the void and almost covered the entire sky. What kind of trick is this? The spreading blood-red color covered the entire sky. Night Sorrow was a little surprised. He activated the sea serpent's eye to observe but couldn't see the other party's intention. He also couldn't find a chance to attack. Fighting with a foreign race was different from fighting with enemies from the divine world. While he was observing, he asked, "Dragon Sparrow King, you've fought with the Blood Clan before. Do you know what he's doing?" Dragon Sparrow King, who was in the clear sky pagoda, frowned and said, "I've met a Divine King before, but he didn't use this so-called Blood Clan Sky Swallowing Technique. I can't see through his technique." Fire Phoenix King, what about you? Have you heard of a similar technique? Night Sorrow continued to ask. The Divine King from the Bloody Territory had used the Blood Clan Sky Swallowing Technique, and his aura was very majestic. He used the blood-red color to completely cover the sky. However, he didn't release his willpower and didn't attack. This made Lin Feng very surprised. I've never encountered such a technique either. However, you still have to be careful when he uses such a technique. Fire Phoenix King reminded him worriedly. I will. Night Sorrow nodded and continued to look at the sky. At this moment, the Divine King from the Bloody Territory had completely covered the entire sky. Blood Clan Sky Swallowing Technique. At this moment, the Divine King of the Blood Clan roared again with his blood-red eyes. After he roared, some of the Blood Clan's divine lords and exalted gods turned into blood water and flew into the sky as if they had evaporated. Sky Swallowing Technique? Is it to devour one's own kind to increase one's strength? Night Sorrow was still a little surprised when he saw the situation in front of him. He thought for a while and used the heavenly halberd of Samsara to test the waters. He wanted to see if he could interrupt Blood Eye's heaven-devouring art. However, after Night Sorrow used the heavenly Samsara halberd to unleash the Inferno demon-slaying technique, it was also swallowed up by the red cloud created by the Blood Eye. After swallowing the raging flames from the Samsara halberd, the density of the blood clouds increased significantly. It seems that this blood cloud has the ability to devour. While Night Sorrow was judging Shui Yun's ability, he held the Samsara halberd tightly and was ready to attack. Meanwhile, Blood Eye laughed coldly and said, "Stop resisting. You have no chance against this King's Blood Clan Sky Swallowing Technique. Because as long as it was within the range of the blood cloud, anything would be devoured by this king. Including you." After the Blood Eye King's voice was heard, a cold wind blew in the blood cloud. Everything in the area covered by the blood cloud flew up into the sky. This included the captured Sir Gods and High Gods in the realm of the gods. Sky Swallowing Technique? Devour everything in the area covered by the blood cloud? Night Sorrow muttered to himself and shouted, "I'll satisfy you. I'll give you the best thing and see if you can devour it." As he spoke, he took out the Tianyun bow and turned the power of virtue into an arrow and shot it towards the blood cloud. Sovereign Grade Artifact? After Night Sorrow took the Tianyun bow from his back, it let out a loud roar. It also emitted a blinding yellow light. It lit up the blood-red world. Blood Eye immediately saw that Night Sorrow had taken the Sovereign Grade Artifact. He shouted with envy. He used the Sky Swallowing Technique to attract the Tianyun bow and tried to devour it. You want to devour the Sovereign Grade Artifact? Let's see if you can resist the power of virtue. By the time Night Sorrow responded to the Blood Eye, the arrow formed by the power of merit had already struck the blood cloud. The moment the power of virtue arrow hit the blood cloud, the golden power of virtue was quickly devoured by the blood cloud. After a short while, the blood cloud that covered the sky spat out the golden power of virtue arrow. Clearly, the blood cloud formed by Blood Eye could not resist the power of virtue arrow. Power of virtue? How can there be such a thing in this world? Impossible, this is impossible. Blood Eye, who had a part of the blood cloud purified by the power of virtue arrow, found it unbelievable. Nothing is impossible. After realizing that the power of virtue arrow was effective against the blood cloud, Night Sorrow used his deity domain to bind Wuxia and the others so that they would not be sucked away by the blood cloud. At the same time, he shot out another 3 power of virtue arrows. In addition to the previous one, 4 arrows pierced through the thick blood cloud. Soon, the blood cloud was almost completely purified. The entire sky was dominated by gold. Damn it! How can there be such a strange power? The Blood Eye Monarch, who had originally thought that he could defeat Night Sorrow, cursed angrily and immediately summoned, "Blood Origin, lend me a hand. Blood Eye King, you can't even deal with a celestial. You are really disappointing. It seems like you are not qualified to be the clan leader of the Blood Tribe." The Blood Will was summoned, but it did not appear. Instead, a gloomy voice came from the void. The blood-colored mountain peaked beneath the feet of Yishang and the rest trembled slightly. Could the blood mountain under my feet be the Blood Origin? When he thought of this, Yishan immediately leaped into the air. "Merit Celestial of the deity world, you have discovered my existence, but it is too late for you to escape." As soon as Night Sorrow raised his voice, the blood mountain under his feet split open into a huge mouth and swallowed Night Sorrow and the people of the deity world. What is going on? Lord Night Sorrow, are you still alive? After Night Sorrow was swallowed by the Blood Origin, everything around him turned blood red. Dragon Sparrow King, who was in the Clear Heaven Pagoda, asked worriedly, "I won't die so easily." Hearing Dragon Sparrow King's voice transmission, Night Sorrow replied snappily. After being swallowed by the Blood Origin, he was surrounded by a bloody stench. Regardless of whether it was the environment or the smell, it was nauseating. He was very unhappy. If you are not injured, quickly think of a way to get out. Dragon Sparrow King reminded, I have heard that the things that are swallowed by the blood origin will quickly become its replenishment. I am thinking of a way. Suddenly being swallowed, Night Sorrow's first reaction was to think of a way to get out. After replying to Dragon Sparrow King, he held the Samsara halberd in his hand and waved it continuously, trying to dig a way out. However, in the bloody stench, he dug for a long time but could not find any end, let alone escape. Cultivators who have been swallowed by the blood origin will not be able to escape. Give up struggling and prepare to turn into a pool of blood. The Scarlet Origin sent a cold voice transmission when it saw that Yishang was constantly digging. This is really strange. Night Sorrow, who had failed to dig continuously, suddenly stopped. Chapter 2799. It was because Tianyun Bao needed to absorb the power of blood to activate it. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow said to himself, I wonder if Tianyun Bao can absorb blood of this grade. The blood-colored origin had swallowed them into the blood-colored world in front of them. It was not easy to escape. Night Sorrow planned to let Tianyun Bao absorb all the blood around him. But when Night Sorrow transmitted his thoughts to Tianyun Bao, he poured a large amount of blood and virtuous energy into Tianyun Bao. He was afraid that Tianyun Bao would be demonized by the evil attribute if he absorbed too much evil blood. After absorbing a large amount of blood and virtuous energy, Tianyun Bao shook violently and was directly activated. After being activated, Tianyun Bao immediately followed Night Sorrow's instructions and crazily absorbed the blood around him. It instantly absorbed a large amount of blood like a whale swallowing. Stop first. After absorbing a large amount of blood, Tianyun Bao's aura became much stronger. At this time, Night Sorrow asked Tianyun Bao to stop. He checked and found that Tianyun Bao was not affected by the evil blood, so he ordered him to continue absorbing it. What's going on? After Tianyun Bao absorbed a large amount of blood, the blood-colored origin immediately roared. It did not expect that the Dominator divine weapon in Night Sorrow's hand could absorb so much blood. What's going on? You can absorb other people's blood, but you can't accept others absorbing your blood? Night Sorrow, who was still trapped, was no longer as depressed as before because he saw a path. After Tianyun Bao was released again, he immediately absorbed the blood energy around him even more crazily. In the blink of an eye, the blood origin was sucked away and fled. As the blood-colored origin, it could accumulate so much blood and become a blood-colored mountain. It had absorbed a lot of blood from the deity realm cultivators. Now Tianyun Bao was even more tyrannical than it. He was swallowing like a whale. This caused the crimson origin to panic. Devour the blood clouds in the sky. While the blood-colored origin fled frantically, Night Sorrow saw that the blood-colored cloud formed by the blood-colored eye was still in the sky. He immediately told Tianyun Bao to absorb the blood clouds in the sky. After being absorbed by Tianyun Bao, Shui Yun, who had been waiting for an opportunity to attack, quickly felt despair. Ordinary deity realm cultivators rarely had the means to restrain the Crimson Territory when they fought against them. The current Tianyun Bao was like a natural nemesis. After a large amount of blood was absorbed by him, the blood eye chose to escape just like the blood origin. Trying to escape? Do you have the chance? Seeing that blood eye wanted to escape, Yishan immediately cast a virtuous dragon-locking array at him in his human form. After binding him, he immediately let Tianyun Bao absorb all the blood energy in his body. Poor Blood Eye, a divine king, was directly absorbed by Tianyun Bao before he could unleash his power. Tianyun Bao was simply the nemesis of blood. Isn't this a little too miraculous? Mo-Zia, Zhong Lingxiao, and the others who had been saved by Night Sorrow, couldn't believe their eyes after seeing Tianyun Bao's power. The Blood Eye, the powerful divine king of the Crimson Territory, was actually sucked to death by a deity weapon. If this matter was told to the deity realm, no one would believe it. In fact, it wasn't just them. Even the Fire Phoenix King and the Dragon Sparrow King in the Clear Sky Pagoda were stunned. Although Tianyun Bao was a Dominator-grade deity weapon, it was still a little exaggerated to say that he had directly sucked a divine king to death. Sucking a divine king to death is nothing. Next, let's directly destroy the Crimson Origin. Only Night Sorrow was very calm. After saying that, he looked at Mo-Zia, Zhong Lingxiao, and the others and said, "You guys wait for me here for a while. I'll be back soon. Don't move, wait for me here. I'll be back soon." After saying that, Night Sorrow set up a simple concealment array and flew into the sky. He, who had learned the horn race's tracking technique, could sense the general location of the Crimson Origin and directly chased after it. Wuxia, Zhong Lingxiao and the others who were standing in place, all felt that this was a little surreal. They had never imagined that the Blood-Eye territory's origin would be hunted down. Where are you running to? Night Sorrow, who had activated the Trayastrimsa battle mystic technique and used the dragon roaming heaven steps, quickly caught up to the Crimson Origin, which wasn't very fast. He sent out Tianyun Bao again and let him absorb the Crimson Origin's energy. The Crimson Origin, which was entangled by Tianyun Bao, had thousands of methods, but it couldn't use any of them. It didn't even have the mood to summon the Crimson Territory's Divine King. This was because Tianyun Bao's characteristics restrained the entire Crimson Territory. Tianyun Bao is indeed worthy of being a sovereign divine weapon. Seeing that the Crimson Origin didn't have the ability to resist at all, the Dragon Sparrow King in the Clear Sky Pagoda was secretly pleased and said, "I was a little worried at first, but now it seems that the Crimson Territory is the easiest to deal with. We're lucky this time. It just so happens that Tianyun Bao restrains them. Otherwise, the Crimson Origin wouldn't be easy to deal with." Night Sorrow wasn't overly excited. While Tianyun Bao was suppressing the Crimson Origin, he had been vigilant of his surroundings, on guard against a sneak attack from an opponent at the level of the Divine King. However, the Crimson Origin's will was clear that the Crimson Territory's Divine King was naturally restrained. Even if all of them came, it would be useless. While its energy was being crazily absorbed, it used a secret technique to disintegrate itself into countless blood droplets and spread some information about Night Sorrow and Tianyun Bao. Very soon, the Crimson Origin was completely eliminated by Tianyun Bao, and the various Divine Kings and Divine Lords of the Crimson Territory were immediately weakened. They no longer posed any threat to the Divine World. However, after the Crimson Origin's propaganda, the matter of Night Sorrow outside the Divine World was completely exposed. Moreover, the matter of the Dark Territory's origin being destroyed was also found out by the other territories. After investigating these matters, the people of the 5 territories mercilessly separated the Crimson Territory and the Dark Territory. The opponents of the Divine World territories also changed from 7 to 5 territories. As for the 5 great territories excluding the 5 great essences, there were roughly 15 God Kings. If the Divine World included Night Sorrow, it would only be in the single digits. In terms of combat strength, the Divine King was still at a disadvantage. However, with the addition of Night Sorrow, the cultivators below the Divine King of the 5 territories no longer had any influence on the Divine World. Moreover, they were likely to be of help in the battle. After thinking about Night Sorrow, he felt that at this time he had been completely exposed. He might as well bring Wuxia, Zhong Lingxiao, and the others to the Divine World territories and fight the 5 territories together with the cultivators of the Divine World. However, after the Crimson Origin exposed him and Tianyun Bao, the top combat strength of the 5 territories all rushed to the Crimson Territory. Chapter 2800. After Zhong Lingxiao finished speaking, the atmosphere in the Heaven and Earth Spirit Gathering Array was heavy and sorrowful. Night Sorrow said, "If everyone believes me, then fight with all your might. You will die today, but as long as the array is not destroyed, you will be reborn one day. Not a single one will be left behind." "We can be reborn after dying in this array? Really?" Hearing Yishang's words, Wuxia looked at him suspiciously, wanting to confirm the truth of the matter. "Of course it's real. I have a friend who was reborn endlessly in the Heaven and Earth Spirit Gathering Array. However, the feeling of death is real every time." Night Sorrow explained to Wuxia, then looked at the crowd and said, "From the looks of it, if we fight, I won't be able to handle all of you. Sorry. You've already done enough for us. Don't put too much on us." Zhong Lingxiao had a carefree smile on his face as he spoke to Yishang. Then he turned to the crowd and said, "Let's go. Follow me, don't be a burden." He meant to leave Night Sorrow as soon as possible. If a great battle broke out and they were a burden, it would be extremely disadvantageous for Night Sorrow. "Everyone take care." Night Sorrow waved at Zhong Lingxiao and the others as they left. "They're here. The armies of the 5 territories are all here." After sending Zhong Lingxiao and the others away, Night Sorrow stood alone in the array and saw smoke rising from 5 directions. The troops of the myriad miasma, soul-slaying, poison heart, thousand wasps, and heavenly diabolism territories were rushing over from 5 different directions. In each team there were at least 2 God Kings' existences. The myriad miasma territory was formed by a strange miasma between heaven and earth. The two divine kings, 10,000 wrath and 10,000 resentment, were in human form, but they were fundamentally different from the cultivators of the god realm. The leaders of the soul-slaying territory, Soul 1, Soul 3 and Soul 15, were all evil mutated beasts in human form. As for the people in Poison Heart territory, they cultivated from the myriad poison soul. The Thousand Wasps territory and the Heavenly Diabolism territory were made up of 1,000 demon wasps and demons respectively. Standing in the heaven and earth spirit gathering array, Night Sorrow, who was holding the Tianyun bow, looked in 5 directions with the eye of the Mirage Dragon. Then he took a deep breath and prepared for battle. We're here. Who's going to make a move first? The divine king of the myriad miasma domain, who had arrived in front of the heaven and earth assembly formation, was the first to speak. He could see that Night Sorrow was the only one in the formation. The Tianyun bow in Night Sorrow's hands made him extremely jealous. When he heard Wan Ru's words, the leader of the soul-slaughtering estate, Hun Yi, immediately replied coldly, "Of course we will attack together." As for the ruler artifact, it will belong to whoever manages to snatch it. Everyone, what do you think? Good. Just like that. Let's kill the deity realm cultivators inside first, then we'll figure out who the sovereign god artifact belongs to. The Een Demon King, who was the strongest among them, glanced at the divine king and said coldly, "Very good. Since everyone thinks this is a good idea, then let's attack. If I'm not wrong, the deity realm cultivator is just a Sir God." As the leader of the Thousand Peaks territory, the Thousand Demon Wasp King, spoke, he ordered all the 1,000 demon wasps under him to attack the barrier of the formation. However, when the 1,000 demon wasps pounced on the heaven and earth spirit gathering array, they realized that they could not touch the barrier of the formation at all. All the 1,000 demon wasps that had pounced on them flew into the formation. Seeing the situation in front of him, the 1,000 demon wasp king said coldly, "Kill." What he meant was to let the 1,000 demon wasps under him test the limits of Night Sorrow's strength. It could be considered a suicide attack. If the divine king comes in, he won't be able to do anything at all. Night Sorrow, who was floating quietly in the air, was surrounded by the brilliance of the power of virtue. When the 1,000 demon wasps had attacked, he had waved his sleeves and killed all of them. However, although this wave of his sleeves looked domineering, it was actually him using the law of speech to kill these 1,000 demon wasps with his mouth. However, in the eyes of the divine king, Night Sorrow had killed these 1,000 demon wasps with a wave of his sleeves. He was very powerful. You have some strength. You are worthy of this queen personally taking action. Seeing that Night Sorrow had killed the 1,000 demon wasps, the 1,000 demon wasp queen beside the 1,000 demon wasp king immediately rushed into the formation. "Wasp queen, how can my 1,000 resentment not be involved in snatching the sovereign divine weapon?" After the 1,000 demon wasp queen flew into the heaven and earth spirit gathering array, the 1,000 resentment of the 1,000 miasma territory immediately followed. Obviously, none of the territories could stand by and watch people from other territories snatch the sovereign divine weapon. After the two of them flew into the heaven and earth spirit gathering array, the other 3 territories each sent a divine king. In the eyes of the leaders, 5 divine kings against 1 divine lord, Night Sorrow, was already an extremely luxurious lineup. There was no need for more divine kings to take action. 5 divine kings. Very good. I, Night Sorrow, will fight you 5 divine kings today. Seeing that each of the 5 territories had sent a divine king into the heaven and earth spirit gathering array, Night Sorrow roared and directly activated the 33 Skies Battle Mystic technique to increase his strength. Then he directly used the Green Rock Soul Rending Roar to attack the 5 divine kings. Ah! Not a bad divine soul attack, but to this king, it is just child's play. The divine king of the Poison Heart territory, Poison Frost, was not affected by the Green Rock Soul Rending Roar at all. He directly spat out a strong poisonous gas at Night Sorrow. This poisonous gas was dark green. Wherever it passed, even the mountains were corroded, let alone the flowers and trees. The poison is indeed very strong. But in the heaven and earth spirit gathering array, your attack is useless. In the face of Poison Frost's dark green poisonous gas, Night Sorrow immediately activated the Great Spirit Gathering formation of heaven and earth. In an instant, the poisonous gas was absorbed by the heaven and earth spirit gathering array, leaving no trace behind. You have some ability, but it's not enough. At this moment, the 1,000 Demon Queen Bee, who was slightly affected by the Green Rock Soul Rending Roar, aggressively attacked Night Sorrow. At this moment she was in human form, holding a slender needle-shaped divine weapon. Forbidden Spear. Facing the attack of the Thousand Demon Queen Bee, Knight Sorrow used the Samsara Halberd to launch the Forbidden Spear. At the same time he used the Virtuous Dragon Locking Array. The Thousand Demon Queen Bee, who was temporarily restrained by the Virtuous Dragon Locking Array, was trapped in a sealed space together with the needle-shaped divine weapon in her hand. The halberd radiance from the Samsara Halberd suddenly blasted into the space. This attack caused the Thousand Demon Queen Bee to be severely injured. The Thousand Demon Queen Bee was only a lower divine king. Not only was she considered weak among the divine kings of the 5 territories, but she was also a divine king. Although Knight Sorrow's cultivation was only a middle divine lord, his true strength was much stronger than hers. After being hit by the Samsara Halberd, the Thousand Demon Queen Bee immediately spat out green blood. This divine lord definitely has the strength of a divine king. All of you attack together. After killing her, we will discuss how to divide the divine weapons. Chapter 28:01. Good. I agree with the Yin Demon King. In order to avoid trouble, all of you attack together and kill him quickly. After the strongest Yin Demon King spoke, the Thousand Demonic Bee King gave the order coldly. The Thousand Demonic Bee King was furious that Knight Sorrow was stronger than the Thousand Demonic Bee King and had even injured it. Good. I also agree. All of you attack together. We don't have to care about our reputation when fighting against a deity realm cultivator. The leader of the Myriad Miasma territory, Wan Raging, also agreed. After the leaders gave their orders, the 5 Divine King immediately surrounded Knight Sorrow. At the same time, the Thousand Demonic Bee King, who was furious that Knight Sorrow had attacked the Thousand Demonic Bee King, sent out 10 Divine Monarch level Thousand Demonic Bees and countless deity level Thousand Demonic Bees to help. The Thousand Demonic Bees were not strong individually, but they were very good at fighting in groups. When the Thousand Demonic Bee army came out, the sky buzzed. TSK. Thousand Demonic Bee King, we sent out 5 Divine King, which is enough to crush him. Under such circumstances, you still sent out half of your army. Aren't you afraid of losses? Seeing the Thousand Demonic Bee King send out a huge army of Thousand Demonic Bees, the Yin Demon King said maliciously. In her opinion, the Thousand Demonic Bee King sent the army in advance to help snatch the sovereign divine weapon Tianyun Bao. Hearing this, the Thousand Demonic Bee King said coldly, he dared to injure the queen bee of this king, so he will have to suffer the cruelest punishment. This king sent out the Thousand Demonic Bee army to eat his flesh and bones. He will not participate in the snatching of the sovereign divine weapon. Good. I hope you will do as you say. After the Thousand Demonic Bee King finished explaining, the Yin Demon King snorted and did not speak again. She fixed her gaze on Knight Sorrow. At this moment, Knight Sorrow was under a lot of pressure facing the 5 Divine King. He wanted to activate the Heaven and Earth Energy Gathering Array and use Tianyun Bao. However, at this moment, the Thousand Demonic Bee King sent out the Thousand Demonic Bee army. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Knight Sorrow's face. Without the slightest hesitation, he used the absolute law on the Thousand Demon Bees in the Thousand Demon Bee army that were below the Divine Monarch realm. Let them all self-destruct. Although these self-destructing Thousand Demon Bees were all at the high deity level, there were too many of them. The sudden explosion had caught everyone except for Knight Sorrow, off guard. A loud explosion was heard at the same time. The Thousand Demon Queen Bee, which was the closest to the explosion, was instantly killed. Wan Yuan and the other 4 Divine King were also injured to varying degrees. As for the Sir Gods in the Thousand Demon Bee army, they didn't even have the chance to make a sound before they were killed by the explosion. Amazing. How did Lord Knight Sorrow manage to kill a Divine King and heavily injure 4 others in one go? Hearing Knight Sorrow's words, Wuxia, who was hidden in the depths of the Heaven and Earth Spirit Gathering Array, sighed when he saw Knight Sorrow quietly floating in the air. This tremendous power was simply earth-shattering and it brought him a great shock. This might be what he meant when he said that his words were law. Those of a lower realm than him won't be able to resist at all. Zhong Lingxiao deduced. During their conversation, Knight Sorrow had mentioned some details to them. He had mentioned that he would use his words to destroy all the armies below the Sir God level in the 5 territories. It sounded unbelievable, but it was indeed happening. Bastard. You're courting death for killing my queen bee. The Thousand Demon Queen Bee had been killed and half of her subordinates had been killed. The Thousand Demon Queen Bee was enraged. She turned into a huge bee and flew into the Heaven and Earth Spirit Gathering Array, wanting to kill Night Sorrow directly. The Yin Demon King and the others saw the Thousand Demon Queen bee fly in directly. They were afraid that Tianyun Bao would snatch it away, so they immediately rushed into the Heaven and Earth Spirit Gathering Array with him. At this moment they were very afraid of Night Sorrow's methods. They ordered everyone below the Divine King to stay away from the area covered by the array. In their opinion, Night Sorrow was using the array to make the Thousand Demon Bee army self-destruct. You want to attack as a group? You'd better experience what it means to be shocked first. At this moment, Night Sorrow saw the Thousand Demon Queen Bee and the other Divine King rushing over and used his words again. He detonated all the armies below the Sir God level in the 5 territories, killing almost all the Sir Gods present. Even 2 of the Divine King would die. Damn it, what kind of method is this? The Divine King who had been rushing toward Night Sorrow and wanted to snatch the Tianyun Bao. After all the high gods in the 5 territories self-destructed, they were dumbfounded. Thousands of people had surrounded Night Sorrow, but now it was a dozen against 1. The change in quantity was simply too great. We have to snatch the ruler divine weapon. Otherwise our Yin demon race will definitely decline. We won't even be able to protect the heavenly diabolism territory. The Yin demon king, who was strong in the 5 territories, didn't have a trace of pity when she saw her subordinates dying. She was still thinking about how to snatch the ruler divine weapon from Tianyun Bao. She was very cold. The leaders of the other 4 territories, other than the furious Thousand Demon Queen Bee, were also very calm. It was as if losing the army behind them was nothing to them. This is a miracle. Our God Realm territory is saved. Zhong Lingxiao saw everything that was happening and immediately transmitted her voice to Wuxia excitedly. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We have to do something. Do something? With our strength I'm afraid we can't help much. Wuxia sighed slightly. Although there were only a dozen Divine King left in the 5 territories, their combat strength was quite terrifying. To Wuxia, Zhong Lingxiao, and the others, they were existences that could completely crush them. Our strength is definitely not enough to fight the Divine King. But we can send a message to the God Realm territory. Let a few experts come to support us. Zhong Lingxiao said excitedly. He asked, do you think I'll get such a good opportunity in the God Realm? That makes sense. What you said makes sense. We have to do this. Hearing Zhong Lingxiao's words, Wuxia's eyes lit up. After analyzing the situation, he opened his mouth and said, the experts of these territories are basically all besieging Lord Night Sorrow. We can hurry back to the God World territory and ask for help. But I think there are too many people. It's most suitable for the 2 of us to go. Good. That's the way it should be. Zhong Lingxiao nodded and continued. Let's not delay. Let's go. Then, he transmitted his voice to Night Sorrow. Lord Night Sorrow, your methods are amazing. I, Zhong Lingxiao, am impressed that you defeated so many experts of the other races. Don't worry, you're not fighting alone here. Xia and I will go and ask for help. Will the experts of the God Realm come to support us? Chapter 2802. Although 2 of the 7 origins of the Divine Realm's territories had been destroyed, the defensive arrays of the Divine Realm's territories could still be destroyed. Right now, cooperating with Yishan to fight to the death was definitely the best choice. However, Wuxia and Zhong Lingxiao might not be able to explain the situation clearly. Hearing Night Sorrow's doubts, Zhong Lingxiao replied, as long as we arrive safely, I will definitely have a way to do it. You guys go. However, although the elites of the Divine Realm have been wiped out, it's not absolutely safe outside. You guys have to be careful. As Night Sorrow replied, the Thousand Demon Bees attack had already arrived. He no longer had the energy to deal with Wuxia and Zhong Lingxiao. He immediately wielded the Samsara halberd and started fighting. Almost all the high gods and divine lords present had been wiped out, and the Divine King had fallen as well. In the void, the power of merit continuously surged into Night Sorrow's body. His power of merit increased once again, and it was about to rise from a middle-level divine lord to a high-level divine lord. This speed of improvement was unprecedented in the Divine Realm. Forbidden Spear. The power of merit increased rapidly, and Night Sorrow's Forbidden Spear was accompanied by a large amount of power of merit. Boom. The first to arrive was the Thousand Demon Bee. Its tyrannical attack was immediately blocked by Night Sorrow. It could be seen that the Thousand Demon Bee's strength wasn't very strong. Its strength should be due to some special methods. However, due to the Thousand Demon Wasp Monarch's frenzy, it managed to save the injured God Kings. Night Sorrow simply didn't have the time to deal with them. After blocking the Thousand Demon Bee's attack, Night Sorrow realized that the other Divine King, including the Een Demon Queen, were all attacking him. Facing the attacks of almost 10 Divine Kings, no matter how strong Night Sorrow was, it was impossible for him to take them head-on with the strength of a Divine Lord. He immediately used an escape technique in the array. Furthermore, after Mo Xia and Zhong Lingxiao left the Heaven and Earth Energy Gathering Array, the array that was already activated was completely activated. The real show is about to begin. After activating the Heaven and Earth Energy Gathering Array, Night Sorrow carried the Samsara halberd on his back and held the Tianyun Bao in his hand. He continuously shot the arrow of merit at a few Divine Kings. At this moment, the Tianyun Bao had just absorbed the blood-colored origin and was completely activated. Yi Shan's attack was already strong, and his power of virtue was even stronger than before. The 11 arrows of the Divine Kings Divine Lord level Divine Lords level Divine Lords Divine Lord. Although the Een Demon King and the others were a little wary of the arrow of virtue, they still relied on their strength to catch it. However, the 2 lower Divine Kings present were not so lucky. They were shot by the arrow of virtue and were directly annihilated in the void. His Divine Lord's Divine Lord absorbed origin Divine's Divine Origin. Divine's SSSS. The other portion was converted into power of virtue and replenished Night Sorrow's body. This made the Divine Essence energy and power of virtue within Night Sorrow's body not suffer any depletion at all. Under these circumstances, Night Sorrow once again condensed the virtuous arrow and shot out the virtuous 5 elements arrow at the Thousand Demon Queen Bee, who was not that powerful like the Divine King. The power of a sovereign artifact is indeed extraordinary. Seeing the 5-element arrow shoot towards the Thousand Demon Queen Bee, the Een Demon King revealed a joyful expression. He was extremely satisfied with the might of the Tianyun Bao. However, at this moment he was still holding back. He did not immediately rush forward to fight Night Sorrow. Of course, this was to prevent Night Sorrow from targeting him. The leaders of the other territories also maintained a low profile. In their opinion, now was not the time to go all out. Otherwise, no matter how strong Night Sorrow was, he wouldn't have been able to resist the encirclement of the Divine King. In the battle, the Thousand Demon Queen Bee realized that the Divine King of the other territories did not go all out when facing the 5-element arrow. It looked like they were toying with the virtuous arrow shot by Night Sorrow. They were simply adding insult to injury and using Night Sorrow to get rid of the Thousand Demon Queen Bee. At this moment, the other 2 Divine King in the Thousand Demon Queen Bee's camp had both died. As long as the Thousand Demon Queen Bee was killed, another territory would be instantly destroyed, and the benefits they could divide would be even greater. You guys are simply despicable and shameless. The Thousand Demon Queen Bee was instantly enraged. She wanted to resist, but there was nothing she could do. At this moment, Night Sorrow, who had shot out the virtuous arrow, used the virtuous dragon lock formation to bind her within. The Thousand Demon Queen Bee, who was slightly distracted, suddenly realized that it was too late for her to break free. Stop, let go of this king. This king will help you deal with them. The Thousand Demon Queen Bee felt that she could no longer dodge the 5-element arrow shot by the sovereign artifact. She immediately gritted her teeth and sent a voice transmission to Night Sorrow. Their race was extremely vengeful. Now, their hatred for the other 4 territories had even surpassed that of Night Sorrow, who had killed the Thousand Demon Queen Bee. She did not want to die. She wanted to live and take revenge. You will help me deal with them? How can I trust you? After the 5-element arrow shot into the virtuous dragon lock formation, Night Sorrow stopped the attack temporarily to give the Thousand Demon Queen Bee a chance to speak. I, the Thousand Demon Queen Bee, swear that I will follow you forever and be your servant. Otherwise I will be killed by the lightning. Is this enough? The Thousand Demon Queen Bee's tone was filled with intense hatred. Yes. Cooperate with me and attack that Divine King. Night Sorrow did not care about whether the Thousand Demon Queen Bee was sincere or not. He casually responded and pointed to one of the Divine Kings in the Heavenly Diabolism territory. At this moment, under the powerful protection of the Een Demon Queen, there were still 3 uninjured Divine Kings in the Heavenly Diabolism territory. Night Sorrow wanted to use the Thousand Demon Queen Bee to quickly kill one of them. Otherwise, the strength of the Heavenly Diabolism territory would obviously surpass all the territories present. It was very likely that they had the ability to command the heroes. This was something he did not want to see. Currently, Knight Sorrow felt that even if he had to risk his life, he had to take away a few Divine King-level characters. Therefore he could not let the Heavenly Diabolism territory be the only one. Okay. I will cooperate with you to kill him. After the Thousand Demon Queen Bee sent a voice transmission to Knight Sorrow, she immediately shot 72 tail needles at one of the Divine King under the Een Demon Queen Bee. Every single one of these 72 tail arrays was extremely poisonous. When they shot towards the Een Demon Queen, they had already dyed the wind green. Thousand Demon Queen Bee, you actually dare to attack the people of my Heavenly Diabolism territory? Do you really think that my Heavenly Diabolism territory is easy to bully? Seeing the Thousand Demon Queen Bee attack his subordinates, the #1 expert of the Heavenly Diabolism territory, the Een Demon, immediately roared. What are you roaring for? Don't think that I can't see through the thoughts of the 4 territories. You want to silently get rid of this king? Then this king will show you what's good for you. The Thousand Demon Bee King, who had just escaped from Yishang's clutches, roared and transmitted a message to Yishang. Use the same attack that you just used. The evil Een Monarch won't be able to withstand it. Okay. Chapter 2803. Een Devil King, Een Evil King, hurry and save me. Een Evil King could still hold on against the Thousand Demon Bee's 72 poisonous stingers. But at the same time, it was impossible for her to block Knight Sorrow's arrow of virtue. She immediately called for help. You don't have to tell me that. The Een Devil King coldly replied and then intercepted the arrow of virtue that Yishan had shot out. On the other side, Een Evil King cooperated with Een Evil King to block the Thousand Demon Bee's 72 stingers. As for the Divine King of the other 3 territories, they were happy to watch the show and stopped attacking Knight Sorrow. At this point, they were still confident that they could snatch Tianyun Bao from Knight Sorrow's hands. Therefore they were not in a hurry. Not good. It seems that it will be very difficult to kill even the weakest one. Een Devil King and Een Evil King reacted very quickly. Thousand Demon Bee, who originally wanted to quickly kill Een Evil King, immediately realized that things were difficult. Because of the addition of the 2 of them, the situation immediately reversed. Although Knight Sorrow's arrow of virtue was a 5-element arrow, it was still neutralized by Een Devil King. He had a very strange divine artifact in his hand, the Divine Void Cloud. This Divine Void Cloud was a half-step sovereign artifact, but its power was very special. It directly absorbed Knight Sorrow's 5-element arrow of virtue. When it was spat out, although the power of virtue was still there, it had lost its attacking power and floated back into Knight Sorrow's body. Good move. As expected of the strongest of the few territories. Ever since he controlled Tianyun Bao, this was the first time Knight Sorrow's 5-element arrow had been neutralized so easily. While he was astonished, he had to admit that Een Devil King was very strong. I'll give you a chance to live. Hand over the sovereign artifact and swear allegiance to this king. Looking at Knight Sorrow, Een Devil King's aura was very terrifying. When she quietly floated in the air, she looked like a floating ghost. When she spoke, she did not open her mouth. Her voice seemed to come from the abyss of hell. Wanting me to submit to you is no different from a fantasy. Even if I die in battle, I, Knight Sorrow, will fight you to the death. It's not that easy to get a sovereign artifact. Today's Knight Sorrow was already prepared to die. After replying to the Een Demon King fearlessly, he used the Tianyun Bao to shoot out another 5-element arrow. While shooting the 5-element arrow, Knight Sorrow held the Tianyun Bao in his hand and used it as a close-range divine weapon to attack the Evil King and Evil King who were suppressing the Thousand Demon Queen Bee. The Thousand Demon Bee King's strength was not strong to begin with, and all of his subordinates had been killed by Knight Sorrow's explosion. At this moment he was being suppressed very miserably and was about to be killed. Knight Sorrow was looking forward to this unexpected ally of his. At the very least he felt that he should trade him for the Divine King. This way he could disrupt the balance. When he faked his death, the remaining 4 territories would have a more intense battle. Knight Sorrow waved the Tianyun Bao and joined the battle, just in time to help the Thousand Demon Queen Bee King block the fatal attack of the Evil King. Using the Tianyun Bao as a close-range weapon, the effect was surprisingly good. It directly broke the trident that the Evil King brandished. This king's divine weapon. When the trident was sent flying by Knight Sorrow, the Evil King immediately roared. On the other hand, the Evil King's expression did not change as he launched a sneak attack on Knight Sorrow. He silently turned into an evil spirit and suddenly pounced on Night Sorrow, wanting to grab his divine soul. Facing the evil king's attack, Night Sorrow directly used the power of virtue to attack, burning him and forcing him to retreat. At this moment, the Een Demon Queen used the divine void cloud to dissolve the 5-element arrow and rushed over to help. It was a 3 versus 2 situation once again. After observing the situation, the Een Demon Queen coldly said, "People from the other territories, are you prepared to watch the show and wait for both sides to be injured before taking action to snatch the sovereign divine weapon?" The Een Demon Queen was clearly a shrewd person. After dealing with the sudden situation, she immediately questioned the divine king of the other territories. What is the Een Demon Queen talking about? Everyone agreed to kill the ants first before discussing how to split the sovereign divine weapon. How can you go back on your words? After all, the Een Demon Queen was the strongest person present. After she spoke, the leader of the Soul Slaughter territory, Hun Yi, immediately spoke. At the same time he said to his subordinate, the divine king Hun San, "Let's do it." "Yes, Lord Soul King." After receiving Hun Yi's order, Hun San immediately replied. He once again held the divine weapon in his hand and joined the battle. We, the Myriad Miasma territory, are not people who like to take advantage of others. The leader of the Myriad Miasma territory, the divine king of Myriad Fury, also spoke and asked his subordinate, Wanshang, to help. Seeing that the divine king of the other 2 territories had all rejoined the battle, Poison Phoenix of the Poison Heart territory also brought the uninjured divine king, Du Han, to join in as well. They completely surrounded Night Sorrow and the 1,000 Demon Queen Bee. As for the other territories, some of the injured divine king retreated from the battle and began to think of ways to heal their injuries. It was impossible to say which of the territories' divine king still had the ability to fight, because no one had the time to check. What should we do? Surrounded by so many people, the 2 of us can't even kill one of them. Being surrounded by so many divine king, the 1,000 Demon Queen Bee's face instantly revealed a look of despair. At this time Night Sorrow said with certainty, "Normally we will definitely die. There is no doubt about it. But I feel that before we die we can exchange 1 or 2 of them. In this situation we still have the chance to exchange 1 or 2 of them. Are you prepared to self-destruct the sovereign artifact?" The 1,000 Demon Queen Bee heard Night Sorrow's words and immediately asked doubtfully, "I want to self-destruct, but I don't have the ability. The sovereign artifact in my hand has not recognized me as its master." Night Sorrow explained and continued, "Compared to me, you are completely capable of killing 1 or 2 of them. This king? This king does not have that ability." Hearing Night Sorrow's voice transmission, the 1,000 Demon Queen Bee immediately sighed. "You are really stupid. Think about it, isn't your death certain? Under such circumstances, what's the use of keeping the 1,000 Demon Queen Bee's origin? Why aren't you summoning it to fight?" Night Sorrow immediately reminded the 1,000 Demon Queen Bee, who had not thought of its advantage at all. "Yes. If this king dies in battle, the 1,000 Demon Queen Bee's origin will definitely be divided among the other territories. Since that's the case, why not merge it into your body and fight to your heart's content?" Night Sorrow's words made the 1,000 Demon Queen Bee, who was originally in complete despair, suddenly have a thought. Thinking of this, it immediately summoned the 1,000 Demon Queen Bee's origin. Under the unfavorable situation of many divine king attacking together, it completely merged with the 1,000 Demon Queen Bee's origin. As the king of the 1,000 Demon Queen Bee territory, after merging with the 1,000 Demon Queen Bee's origin, its combat strength immediately increased by several times. Not good. 1,000 Demon Queen Bee, prepare to go all out. The 2 of you must protect yourselves. Chapter 2804. The experienced and knowledgeable Een Demon King knew that with the strength of the 1,000 Demon Bee's body, it wasn't suitable for him to fuse with all of the 1,000 Bee's origin. His body wouldn't be able to withstand it at all. In the battle, the 1,000 Demon Bee had chosen to completely fuse with the 1,000 Bee's origin. He was definitely prepared to die. "All of you. Get ready, I'll drag a few of you along with me." After completely fusing with the 1,000 Bee's origin, the 1,000 Demon Bee had completely fused with the will of the 1,000 Bee's origin. In his human form, there were already traces of cracks on the surface of his skin, and powerful energy kept seeping out. Seeing the state of the 1,000 Demon Bee, the 4 divine kings of the 4 territories all hesitated. No one wanted to be the first to do so. What? Didn't you all attack this king directly because of the Demon King's order? Why aren't you continuing now? The completely crazy Thousand Demon Bee scanned the crowd and said coldly, "Next, this king is preparing to kill the Demon King of the Heavenly Diabolism territory. This king will fight to the death with whoever stops him first." Or are you trying to scare everyone? Don't be afraid of him. This king is already summoning the Heavenly Diabolism's origin. We aren't afraid of him at all. The Demon King, who didn't want to lose her subordinates, directly summoned 3 demons to attack the Thousand Demon Bee after the Thousand Demon Bee's threat. He wanted to use the summoned demon to replace the Thousand Demonic Bee King. This was a good plan. You want to use the demons to replace this king? You must be dreaming. The Thousand Demon Bee wasn't very strong among the Divine Kings, but after fusing with the Thousand Bee's origin, the strength he could unleash when going all out was probably even more terrifying than the Demon King. At the same time that the Demon King released the 3 God King level demons, the Thousand Demon Queen Bee crazily shot out 30-tail arrows at the 3 demons. The 30-tail arrows were overflowing with energy and directly nailed the 3 demons to death. This powerful aura immediately intimidated the many divine kings present. Evil King, the next one to be nailed to death is you. After nailing the 3 demons to death, the Thousand Demon Queen Bee once again locked its gaze on the divine king of the Demon Queen. Bastard. Are you targeting this king? Being targeted again, the evil king of the heavenly evil territory was completely enraged. He ignited the heavenly evil bloodline in his body. Although the leader and strongest person in the heavenly evil territory was the Demon King. But the evil King had the noblest bloodline in the heavenly evil territory. After burning the blood in her body, the evil King's strength immediately increased. Yes, I have my eyes on you. So what? The Thousand Demon Bee King, who had fused with the origin, knew that it would not live for long. Without hesitation, it immediately shot out 72 stingers at the evil King. This time, the number of stingers was exactly the same as last time, but the difference in power was like heaven and earth. Although the evil King had ignited her bloodline, she still revealed a look of fear when facing this attack. She could clearly feel that she wouldn't be able to receive it. Thus, he turned to look at the Demon King. "Don't worry, this king will save you." At this moment, the Demon King moved in front of the evil King and summoned the Void Divine Cloud to receive the 72 stingers of the Thousand Demon Bee King. If you receive those stingers, then you won't have the ability to break my 5-element arrow, right? At this moment, the temporarily silent Night Sorrow seized the opportunity and immediately condensed the power of virtue, using the Tianyun Bao to shoot out the 5-element arrow. Currently, it was also the evil King. Why are they all targeting this king? Facing the 5-element arrow of virtue shot out by Night Sorrow, the evil King couldn't help but roar and began to dodge. Although she had ignited her bloodline power, she was still helpless against the arrow of virtue shot out by the ruler artifact. At this moment, the evil King who wanted to help the evil King felt that it was a bit troublesome, but she still summoned 5 evil spirits to block the 5-element arrow. These 5 evil spirits were pierced through by the 5-element arrow, but they also successfully reduced the speed and power of the arrow of virtue. Facing such 5-element arrow, the evil King no longer dodged, but chose to directly receive it. Boom. Although the evil King was sent flying, she didn't suffer any real injuries. After successfully receiving the 5-element arrow, the evil King sneered, "The attack of the ruler artifact is only SOSO. The origin of the Thousand Demon Bee is only SOSO." The Demon King, who used the Void Divine Cloud to block the 72 stingers of the Thousand Demon Bee King, said in a cold voice. Then she said, "Everyone, as you can see, the 2 of them are just jumping clowns. There is no threat at all. Everyone, attack them together and kill them directly. After that, we can distribute the ownership of the ruler artifact." It's a bit too early for you to say this now. Hearing the Demon King's words, Night Sorrow's face clearly showed an unconvinced expression. He felt that no matter what, he had to change 1 or 2 of the divine kings in the enemy camp today. Too early? It's not early. Now that all of you have used your most powerful techniques, you still can't do anything to us. The only thing waiting for you is to be torn apart. The Demon King coldly threatened and roared, "Kill them! Kill!" The Thousand Demon Bee King felt a little depressed that he didn't kill the evil King with 1 attack. He roared and prepared to continue the battle. At this moment, Night Sorrow stretched out his arm and stopped him. He said, It's obviously impossible to use our lives to exchange for one or two divine kings in such a battle. Next, use the Tianyun Bao and attack the heavenly evil king. I don't believe that you can't kill the heavenly evil king with the ruler artifact. What, you are going to lend me the ruler artifact? Hearing Night Sorrow's words, the Thousand Demon Bee King's face was full of disbelief. Night Sorrow said, "We are going to die, why would we care about the ruler artifact? What I care about is how to kill 2 or more divine kings. This way when we die we won't feel that we have suffered a loss." That makes sense. We have to exchange at least 2 divine kings' lives. Give me the ruler artifact. Night Sorrow was determined to die, and so was the Thousand Demon Bee King. He roared heroically and took the Tianyun Bao from Night Sorrow's hand. He took out more than 10 stingers and looked at the heavenly evil king. This king doesn't believe that I can't kill you after fusing with the origin energy and using the ruler artifact. At this moment, the Thousand Demon Bee King's face was full of madness. After he let out a roar, he drew his heavenly cloud bow and shot out a dozen arrows in succession. His wasp-tail needles immediately turned into death-hastening talismans and shot toward Lord Heavenly Evil. You are even willing to give up the ruler artifact. It seems that you are fighting with the determination to die. However, this king won't let you hurt this king's subordinates. The heavenly evil king definitely didn't have the strength to withstand these attacks. At this critical moment, the Een Demon Queen used the Divine Void Cloud again and wanted to use it to neutralize the stingers shot by the Thousand Demon Bee King. Chapter 2805. Not only was the Void Divine Cloud unable to resolve the Thousand Demon Bee King's attack, it was also pierced by the stinger. After receiving several powerful attacks, the Void Divine Cloud finally couldn't hold on any longer. This was something the Een Demon King didn't expect. My Void Divine Cloud. The 2 of you prepare to receive this king's fury. Seeing that his Void Divine Cloud had been pierced, the Een Demon King couldn't help but cry out in grief. The Void Divine Cloud was one of his most important trump cards. Now that it had been pierced, his heart ached so much that he was about to explode. This king is already prepared to die in battle. Show me everything you've got. But the Een Demon King must die. At this moment, the Thousand Demon Bee King had completely entered a frenzied state. With the Tianyun Bao in his hand, he stared at the Een Demon King. Although the Een Demon King wasn't locked onto by the Thousand Demon Bee King, his expression was extremely ugly. The Thousand Demon Bee King's targeting made him really unhappy. However, facing an opponent with a Dominator Divine weapon, he had no way to deal with it. Fight. He wasn't strong enough. He could only stand behind the Een Demon King. Soul 1 and Soul 3 from the Soul Slaughter estate stopped when they saw the situation develop like this. Whoever made a move now would be stirring up a hornet's nest. The 2 of them weren't that stupid. The Divine King and Wan Shang from the Myriad Miasma estate and the Poison Phoenix and Poison Han from the Poison Heart estate also stopped attacking. Damn it. You all have to die. The Een Demon King from the Heavenly Evil estate saw the situation in front of him, and anger rose in his heart. However, under the current situation he didn't dare to speak too harshly. He was afraid that the people from the 3 territories would cooperate with the Thousand Demon Bee King and kill him in a fit of anger. He cursed in his heart and shot out Een demons at the Thousand Demon Bee King again. This time there were a total of 7 Een demons. Each of them looked the same as the Een Demon King and had the strength of the Divine King. Seeing the Een Demon King summon so many Een demons, the Thousand Demon Bee King laughed manically. He drew his bow again and shot out several stingers. With the help of the Dominator Divine Weapon Tianyun Bao, the power of these stingers was too great. The 7 Een demons that were summoned didn't even have a chance to attack before they were completely wiped out. Evil Een King, let's see who can save you now. After dealing with the 7 Een demons, the Thousand Demon Queen Bee coldly laughed and shot another arrow at the Evil Een King. Heavenly Evil Bloodline. When the Thousand Demon Queen Bee shot out its stinger, the Evil Een King had no way of dealing with it. Even the Evil Een King would not be of much help. After the Een Demon King lost the Void God Cloud, she sent out the power of her bloodline. This was his other trump card. His goal was naturally to protect the Evil King, to prevent her from being killed, to ensure the absolute power of the Heavenly Evil territory. This time, after the Een Demon King had activated her bloodline, she had paid a price and suffered some injuries. However, she had once again neutralized the stinger shot out by the Thousand Demon Queen Bee. Temporarily protect the Evil King. Thank you Een Demon King for taking care of me, otherwise I would have been wiped out. After being saved by the Een Devil King again and again, the Een Evil King immediately thanked her. It's still too early to say thanks. Do not underestimate that monarch god. In this array, the yuan qi we consume is several times faster than the outside world. That is to say, this array can absorb yuan qi. If he can use the absorbed yuan qi, things will be troublesome. While the Een Demon King was on guard against the Thousand Demon Queen Bee, her divine soul had been locked onto Night Sorrow. Although Yishang didn't seem to reveal his true strength, he gave off an extremely dangerous feeling. The Een Demon King knew that the array they were in was not simple. I will pay attention to him. After the Een Demon Queen gave her instructions, the Een Evil King used her divine soul to guard against Night Sorrow. Seeing the Een Evil King's gaze, Night Sorrow did not say anything. At this moment he did not use the yuan qi absorbed by the Heaven and Earth Spirit Gathering array, preparing to use it when he underwent nirvana. However, when the Thousand Demon Queen Bee went crazy, although he did not make a move, he had been studying the current situation. Currently, apart from the Thousand Demon Queen Bee, there were only 9 Divine King with fighting strength in the few large territories. If he could kill one of the Divine King of the Heavenly Evil territory, when he faked his death, it would become a 2 versus 2 situation for the 4 large territories. As long as their competition was cruel enough, a few Divine King would definitely die. In that case, after Night Sorrow underwent nirvana, as long as he joined forces with the Divine World territory, he would be able to completely eliminate them and completely solve the problem. It seems that exchanging 2 for 1 with the Thousand Demon Queen Bee is actually a very good choice. However, killing the Een Evil King doesn't seem to be the best choice. Only by killing the Een Evil King can I further reduce the strength of the Heavenly Evil territory. Thinking of this, Night Sorrow transmitted his voice to the Thousand Demon Queen Bee, feign an attack on the Een Evil King and actually kill the Een Evil King. This time, I will go all out and kill her at all costs. Een Evil King? Good. Killing those who are stronger is indeed a better choice. The Thousand Demon Queen Bee revealed a crazed expression. While transmitting her voice to Night Sorrow, she once again shot out several stingers at the Een Evil King. Thousand Demon Queen Bee, let's see how long you can last. Seeing that the Thousand Demon Queen Bee was using the same trick again, the Een Evil King immediately resisted the stingers, wanting to completely neutralize them. The Een Evil King and the Een Evil King also took action to neutralize the stingers. At this time, Night Sorrow continued to transmit his voice to the Thousand Demon Queen Bee. Good opportunity. Let's kill the Een Evil King. Good. After this king has fused with the origin energy, he has learned a teleportation secret skill. He can use it immediately. Although the Thousand Demon Queen Bee was transmitting her voice, her tone gave off a very cold feeling. If not for the fact that he was sure that he would soon die and become his raw material, Night Sorrow would definitely not have lent out Tianyun Bao. Hearing the Thousand Demon Queen Bee's words, Night Sorrow said, I will continuously use my skills. You just need to quickly get close and kill him in an instant. Okay. The Thousand Demon Queen Bee replied coldly. I'm going to make my move. Night Sorrow, who had been preparing his attack, finally moved. At this moment, not only did he activate the Treastrimsa battle secret technique, he also used the limitless body tempering art to raise his strength to the strongest state. He used the Samsara halberd to pretend to attack the Een Evil King. When the Een Evil King was blocking, he suddenly used the soft dragon roar that he had learned from the Dragon Sparrow King. Night Sorrow, who had erupted with his full strength, roared out the soft dragon roar, immediately causing the Een Evil King, who was not prepared, to be stunned for a moment. His divine soul was damaged and in that instant he was unable to control himself. After shaking the Een Evil King's divine soul, Night Sorrow directly activated the virtuous dragon locking array on him. At the same time, Night Sorrow also entered the dragon locking array. After entering, he immediately did an extremely crazy thing. That was to self-destruct on the spot. Night Sorrow chose to self-destruct in the array. This caused all the Divine King present to be unable to understand. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.